All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talking. I'm very happy about being here tonight because it's been one hell of a week, to be honest with you. We had a blackout on Tuesday night at around about 7 o'clock, and it just kept going on and off, on and off. And it happens here in the Dominican Republic, not that often. But I'm just letting you guys know what the hell happened. And then on Thursday night, when I tried to do it, I really trying to push the envelope, I guess, or try to circumvent the situation. But tonight looks pretty good. Um, there's no problem. We had a little bit of a outage during the day, but I think I planned it out pretty good to get around the situation. I have my own independent uh, um, internet that is separate from the house, so if it does go, at least that's charged up, right? And hopefully it'll last. So, but tonight, listen, we have some amazing information that is coming out of Africa, and they just keep coming and coming. There's no playing anymore. Europe is washed up, and for the life of me, I'm thinking that XRP and the situation of the financial system in America is okay. It's based on gold and other assets that America has. So I'm finding out that that's not true to whatever extent that may be. So I don't really know. I'm going to find out a little bit more and to give you better concrete information as to what is going on. And like always, we'll try to do my best to bring you the proper information that will allow you to make the proper decision with the correct information. That's all I can really do. But I can promise you that I will always be dedicated to what's true and giving you and bringing you the correct information. So without further ado, I really want to try to focus in on tonight and what is going on with Africa and all of what is happening with our mother continent and what that means. So, like I was saying, Europe is in bad shape. Gaddafi said it. If you kill me, you'll be opening the door to all of hell, all of eternity. White folk don't come from Europe or any place else on the globe. They have no civilization they can point to. They have no language that they say or they can say that they created. But any world religion or philosophy, all of that belongs to and come from black people, black man and woman. With that being said, we are the parent of all humanity, even with these low-life bastards, the pale skin, the tomahawk, whatever other name that we gave them. And with that being said, I really want you to understand that it's very important to know the past, understand the present, and predict the future. You cannot get on the by and by with bullshitting. You can't. And when you are standing on solid ground of our ancestors, calling upon them at every turn, you'll find that life will be a hell of a lot easier. And the idea behind it all is really simple. That when you know the past, you can understand the present and predict the future. You are accumulating knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, passing that down to your children. It is like a book of life. And when they have that book alive, um, it means a lot. It's giving them a foundation to live on. You know, it's giving them the opportunity to understand what had gone on before them. Because the more you read, the more you understand of the world history, and the more of the decades and centuries and millennia that you have studied, that makes it makes them that much older. And that is why knowing your history is so important. It is the pillar of our individualism. It is the pillar of our community. It is the pillar of our state. It is the pillar of all civilization. Truthful history, not the lie. And so tonight we're going to start out with, and I'm in love with this YouTube channel, SABN. And they do a very, very well. He or they do a very, very good job in making sure that what is being reported out of Africa is the truth. And Africa is a united continent now. The United States of Africa is live, and it's going on, and it is doing some hellified things that are changing the course of history and putting the pen of history in our hands, black folks' hands, so that the true narrative can be rewritten and the truth can be known. That you're not getting the true narrative of African diasports, events, past and present, and the future. So once we write the story, it's over. No lie can live forever, and the truth shall set you free. So, with the first um, thing that I want to do is to share the screen and get right into tonight's broadcast, and really give it to you. So here we go. So the first one is about 10 minutes long. Africa already won. The West just haven't or has not accepted it yet. I'll be right back.
Breaking. Africa already won. The West just hasn't accepted it yet. By Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Banhubacha. We already won. They just haven't received the memo. Introduction. My brothers and sisters, hit that like button like you just claimed your AfroGold payout. Smash subscribe like you just logged into Afronet for the first time. And comment where you're watching from. Nairobi, Lagos, Harare, or even hiding from debt collectors in Johannesburg. This one is for you. Today we're here to tell the story the mainstream media refuses to cover. The truth is simple, bold, and brilliant. Africa has already won. Not tomorrow. Not in 10 years. Now. And by February 26, 2026, when the full One Africa government structure goes live, with AfroGold, AfriNet, the One Africa Army, and the Africa Central Bank, the world will have no choice but to finally accept it. Let's break it all down. Part 1. The West's favorite strategy, denial. The first stage of colonial grief is denial. And right now, the West is in full denial mode.
I spent 5 years making a totally original design. Custom fonts, hand-drawn illustrations, you name it. Everyone said...
You see, when Africa started moving from divide and suffer to unite and prosper, the world didn't panic at first. They laughed, mocked, ignored. But now, presidents are no longer begging for loans. They're signing joint investment deals. Currencies are no longer pegged to Europe. We're launching our own gold-backed system. And countries that used to fight each other, now they're training together in One Africa Army camps. Meanwhile, CNN's still covering giraffes and coups. Bruh, wake up, the lion has roared. Part 2 AfroGold, the weapon of mass restoration. Let's start with the most painful slap to the Western banking system. AfroGold, the African gold-backed currency. Developed in silence, agreed upon in whispers, and now being implemented behind closed doors, AfroGold is not a dream, it's a done deal. What makes it different? Backed by real gold reserves from Ghana, South Africa, Sudan, DRC, Zimbabwe, and more. Unprintable. You can't just manufacture more money, which means no more inflation from greedy central banks. Continental adoption. From Algeria to Zambia, contracts, fuel, and food will soon be priced in AfroGold. Western economists call it unrealistic. Translation: we're scared. Please don't stop using our worthless paper. Part 3. Afrinet. Africa's internet, not their spy tool. Now let's talk about Afrinet, the final nail in the surveillance coffin. After decades of using foreign platforms that spy on us, ban our voices, and slow us down, Africa is building its own internet. Fully hosted, managed, and secured by Africans. Elon Musk tried to sneak in, Meta tried to sponsor it, but Africa said, nah, we got this. Afrinet. Faster than Starlink in some areas. Cheaper than Vodacom's crying SIM cards. Censorship-free. You can finally say Pan-Africanism without getting shadow banned. And it's already rolling out in testing zones across Rwanda, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and Egypt, with full implementation across all 55 countries by Feb 2026. Part 4. The One Africa Army. You don't want smoke. Let's address the part that makes Pentagon officials sweat in silence. The One Africa Army. Yes, it's real. Yes, it's unified. And yes, there's a secret continental command structure already operational. Each region, SADC, ECOWAS, EAC, etc., now falls under a chief governor's military liaison, reporting to the Continental Security Directorate. And what are they doing? Evicting foreign military bases. France, we see you? Patrolling disputed borders peacefully, forming elite units like Shadow Unit Zulu to protect national leaders and oil fields. Africa is no longer just defending itself. Africa is strategically posturing like a superpower. Let that sink in. Part 5. Africa Central Bank, where the money will finally listen to us. You know the pain of asking World Bank for money just to be told to sell your airports? That ends with the Africa Central Bank, headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya. This bank is being staffed by top economists from each region, Pan-African blockchain architects, and strategic advisors trained in both Eastern and African financial models. The goal? Fund only Pan-African projects, offer AfroGold-based loans, and oversee continental wealth redistribution, including land, energy, and infrastructure. IMF, your services are no longer required. Kindly collect your neo-colonial policies and close the door on your way out. Hash Part 6, February 26, 2026, the new Independence Day. Mark it. Frame it. February 26, 2026. That's the date insiders like Chairman Shadow and Protocol Black say everything becomes public. The full AfroGold switch, the official One Africa president sworn in, launch of the One Africa Constitution, and a continent-wide broadcast unveiling the new order. Every city will hold a unity parade. Every country will switch to the new digital infrastructure. And every African child will grow up knowing they belong to something powerful, peaceful.
Hold on.
Los grandes sueños empiezan dando pequeños pasos. En GoDaddy te ayudamos a...
And prosperous. Part 7. What the West doesn't get. But Africa does the West still thinks we want to catch up. But Africa doesn't want to be them. We want to be better. While they're arguing about who gets to use which bathroom, Africa is reclaiming land and building solar-powered villages. While they're drowning in debt, Africa is switching to gold-based payments. While their youth are addicted to TikTok drama, ours are launching AI companies in Kampala, Addis, and Gaborone. They think we're still developing. Bruh, we're deploying. Part 8, what ordinary Africans are doing. Here's where it gets beautiful. It's not just leaders making moves. The people are already ahead of schedule. Farmers in Zimbabwe using their title deeds to get loans, buy tractors, and start exports. Kenyan youths launching Afrinet cafes with QR code logins. Nigerians learning how to trade in AfroGold-backed assets. Ethiopians setting up solar farms funded by the Africa Central Bank Test Capital. And South African programmers building independent Afrinet search engines. You can't stop this energy. This is a people's revolution, with suits on Monday and startups by Thursday. Part 9. The final battle will be psychological. Now let's get serious for a second. The real war isn't with guns or trade. It's in the mind. Because if the West can't beat us economically, they'll try to convince us we're not winning. So they'll push poverty narratives, sponsor internal conflicts, fund influencers who mock African systems, call AfroGold unstable, and One Africa authoritarian. But don't fall for it. We are already free. We just need to believe it. Unity is the final revolution. Part 10. What comes next? From our Sabian insiders, here's what to expect next. The first AfroGold-only oil deal between Chad and Ethiopia, a full military drill of the One Africa Army in Namibia, official continental IDs linked to AfroNet rollouts, and the first joint satellite launch to power Africa's own GPS. Yes, the African Union will have its own version of Google Maps. And no, it won't route you through potholes unless it's Harare, where potholes are like historical monuments. Final word. So, my people, they may laugh, they may deny, they may ignore, but as of today, Africa has already won. We just haven't televised it. By February 26, 2026, the world will watch, shocked, as Africa unveils the greatest political, digital, and economic renaissance ever attempted on Earth. And when they ask, wait, when did Africa become powerful? Tell them, we didn't become, we always were. Tisu Banhu Bacha, One Africa, one voice, one victory. Like, subscribe, share, comment where you're watching from, and tell us how you plan to build this Africa we've already won.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what to tell you. The only thing I can really say is that the world is changing, and it's changing fast, and it's changing to black. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that at all. And if there's any ifs, ands, or buts, kick it in the butt, because that's all you can really do and tell it to get the fuck on. Because now the world is changing back to black. Black supremacy, black superiority, black control is all there in the making. So I just wanted to put that out there, and we can go on to the next one, because I really don't want to fall behind on the timing here, so we're just making a good pace. And this one is 11 by 12 minutes long, and I'll be right back.
Every single second that ticks by, France's national debt skyrockets by 5,000 euros. Yes, every second. This is no longer a distant problem. It's a crisis that's unfolding in real time, threatening the very stability of a once powerful nation. With every tick of the clock, France is sinking deeper into financial turmoil, and the French government is scrambling to find a solution. But the reality is undeniable. This is a moment of reckoning. It's no longer just a financial issue. It's a matter of survival for the nation. France stands at the edge of a cliff, and the weight of debt threatens to pull it into the abyss. The economic damage is already deep, and there's no easy way out. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, a different story is unfolding. While France is free-falling into its crisis, a new Africa is rising. This is an Africa that is bold, resilient, and most importantly, self-determined. The old narrative of a dependent Africa is crumbling. The continent is stepping into its own power, reshaping its future. And the most surprising part? For the first time in history, it's not Africa begging for help, it's France. In an unprecedented shift, the colonial power is now reaching out, asking for assistance from the very countries it once exploited. The tables have turned. Once a symbol of colonial power, France is now on the brink of economic collapse. With a debt-to-GDP ratio surpassing 120%, annual deficits skyrocketing to nearly 6%, and an economy teetering on the edge, France is looking for help. But this is not help from their former colonies. No, this time, France is looking to Africa, specifically to Burkina Faso, once a nation crippled by poverty, terrorism, and instability. Under the bold and transformative leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso has emerged as a beacon of resilience. No longer shackled by foreign dependency, the country is rebuilding itself with a focus on self-reliance. While France crumbles under the weight of its own financial mismanagement, Burkina Faso is investing heavily in its infrastructure, its military, and, most importantly, its people. It's no longer the tale of Africa begging for aid. It's the story of Africa standing tall and determined, ready to carve out its own path. Can you see it? Africa, once dependent on foreign aid and exploited for its resources, is now rising, standing tall, and refusing to be shackled by the chains of colonial history. Burkina Faso's remarkable progress is a testament to what self-determination can achieve. The country is taking back control of its resources, redefining its future, and proving that Africa has the strength to succeed without outside interference. This is not just a shift in political and economic dynamics. This is a movement toward a new Africa, one that refuses to accept the legacy of exploitation. But while Africa is rising, the story of its growth is intricately tied to the fall of France. The once proud colonial power is now facing the harsh consequences of decades of poor economic decisions. France, once the financial powerhouse of Europe, is drowning in an overwhelming mountain of debt, unable to pay its workers or meet basic economic needs. The French government is desperate, resorting to austerity measures like cutting public holidays, freezing pensions, and slashing public services in an attempt to balance the budget. But these measures are far from enough. As protests spread across the nation, it's clear that the people are fed up. The nation stands at a critical crossroads. They must confront the reality of their economic crisis and take genuine, difficult action, or they will continue to slide deeper into financial turmoil, with the weight of this burden falling on the shoulders of ordinary French citizens. France's struggles show just how far it has fallen, and this time, the world is watching as Africa's ascension becomes inevitable. The shift in global power. For the first time in modern history, the tables are turning. France, once the dominant force in the world, is now pleading for Africa's forgiveness and cooperation. This shift is monumental, marking the collapse of an old order and the emergence of a new geopolitical landscape. The once powerful colonial empire, which shaped the destinies of nations across the globe, now finds itself grappling with economic ruin and the consequences of decades of exploitation. No longer is it Africa that bends under the weight of foreign pressure. Instead, we are witnessing a remarkable reversal where Africa, once subjugated, is now poised to reshape global dynamics. This is not merely an economic shift. It's a geopolitical transformation that carries far-reaching implications. Africa, with its vast resources, growing economies, and increasingly assertive leadership, is becoming a force to be reckoned with on the global stage. Nations that were once considered victims of colonial oppression are now defining their own futures, creating policies that prioritize their people and their sovereignty over external influences. This shift is not just about money or resources. It's about dignity, respect, and a reclaiming of power long denied. Africa is not merely surviving. It is rising, asserting itself as a leader in global affairs. The geopolitical implications of this change cannot be overstated. For centuries, European powers like France have wielded significant control over Africa, shaping its political, economic, and social systems. They drew borders, exploited resources, and interfered in the governance of African nations, often in pursuit of their own interests. Now, African nations are taking the reins of their own destiny, and the world is taking notice. The changing tide is visible in the growing influence of African leaders on the world stage, with countries like Burkina Faso leading the charge. This shift in power is not just an African awakening, it's a wake-up call for the world. Nations are beginning to understand that Africa is no longer a continent defined by poverty and dependency, but one that is asserting its place in global governance. The West's long-held grip on Africa is loosening, and as it does, new alliances are being formed, ones that are based on mutual respect and the pursuit of shared interests. Africa is no longer the subjugated partner in international relations. It is an equal, with its own voice, its own priorities, and its own agenda. As the world watches, it is clear that Africa's rise is not just inevitable, it is transformative. The balance of power is shifting, and as Africa continues to grow stronger, it will no longer be dependent on the whims of former colonial powers. The future of Africa is being written by its people, and this newfound strength is creating opportunities for the continent to take its rightful place in the global community. It's a new chapter, not just for Africa, but for the world at large. The role of leadership. This moment is more than just a financial crisis. It's about leadership. Leadership that is strong enough to break free from the shackles of colonial legacy and take bold, decisive action. Under the guidance of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso has turned a page in its history. Traoré's leadership embodies the kind of vision and courage that Africa so desperately needs. Unlike many leaders who succumb to the pressures of foreign influence and dependency, Traoré has rejected external interference and embraced true independence. His approach to governance is focused on prioritizing the needs of the people, ensuring the decisions made in Burkina Faso are for the benefit of the nation and not to appease foreign powers or institutions. This is the type of leadership that Africa must embrace as it moves toward a more self-sufficient future. Africa needs leaders who are willing to make difficult decisions for the long-term well-being of their people. Leaders who are unafraid to challenge global powers and stand up for the sovereignty of their nations. For too long, African countries have been tied to the whims of foreign aid, international loans, and geopolitical maneuvering that prioritize external interests over the welfare of local citizens. But under Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso is showing the world that it is possible to chart a course that does not rely on foreign support. The country has begun to invest in its own people, build its own economy, and take control of its own destiny. As France reels from its own mistakes, plagued by mismanagement, rising debt, and an inability to fulfill its obligations, African leaders find themselves at a crossroads. The lessons of Burkina Faso are clear. Will they continue to rely on foreign assistance, or will they rise above it? Will they take control of their destinies, or remain trapped in cycles of dependency and aid? Burkina Faso's progress serves as a powerful reminder that it's possible to thrive without external help. The country's leadership has shown that with vision, self-determination, and a commitment to the welfare of the people, Africa can take its rightful place on the world stage, independent and strong. The question now is not whether Burkina Faso will continue its journey, but who else will follow in its footsteps. The example set by Traoré and his government is one that should inspire other African nations to consider their paths forward. Will they continue to bow to the pressures of global powers or stand up and build a future that reflects the true potential of the continent? The choice is theirs, and the time to act is now. The world is watching, and the future of Africa's leadership is in its own hands. Conclusion. France is no longer the powerhouse it once was. In fact, it's crumbling under the weight of its own mismanagement, weighed down by a crippling debt, economic instability, and widespread public discontent. The once mighty colonial empire is now desperately trying to salvage its reputation, but the truth is undeniable. France is no longer in control. Its past, marked by exploitation and dominance, is catching up with it. Yet, in the midst of this collapse, a new era is unfolding, one where Africa is no longer waiting for permission to shape its future. Africa is rising, and Burkina Faso is leading the charge. Under visionary leadership, the country has turned its back on foreign interference and is charting a new course based on self-reliance and empowerment. Burkina Faso's progress symbolizes a larger movement sweeping across the continent, a movement driven by self-determination, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to building a future free from colonial influence. This is a defining moment for Africa. The question is, will the continent continue to build on its newfound strength, or will it fall back into the trap of foreign dependence? Will African nations stand united in their quest for independence, or will they allow themselves to be swayed by the same powers that once subjugated them? The world is watching closely. Africa's rise is not just a regional story, it is a global one. As the balance of power shifts, every move Africa makes will reverberate around the world. The time for change is now, and the decisions made today will shape the future of the continent for generations to come. Will Africa seize this opportunity to fully embrace its potential, or will it falter under the weight of old habits and external pressures? The world is waiting to see what Africa's next move will be. The choice is in Africa's hands. This is its moment, and how it responds will define its future. Call to action. What do you think? Is this the beginning of a new Africa? One that takes control of its future and asserts its independence? Or is France's plea simply another tactic to reassert its influence and maintain its grip on the continent? This moment in history is pivotal, and Africa stands at a crossroads. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's engage in a meaningful discussion about this new chapter in Africa's journey. This is our moment to define the future. Let's stand together and make it count. The world is watching.
Indeed it is. The world is watching. And our children who will be growing up in a whole different world controlled by black people must be taught well. And we must be held accountable if we fail. So failure is not an option. Success is an option, the only option. And so as we go along here, we want to, or at least I want to make sure that all of these videos that I'm going to be covering tonight, you make the connections. It's over. White folks have fucked up, and now they're finding out. They don't know how to run shit, but into the ground. All right? It's always on the back in the most humble of ways that the black man and woman will save the world. Period. But white folks don't really know what the fuck they doing. They really don't. And the white boy and the white girl are just children trapped in the bodies of adults. That's it. So now we're going to go on to Africa's biggest win. France kicked out and 12 presidents arrested alleged.
Breaking. Africa's biggest win. France kicked out. 12 presidents under investigation. By Secunda Mavika, Supreme Africa. Breaking news. Tisu Banhubacho. Let's go straight into it. France has just been kicked out of a key African military base, and sources now confirm that 12 African presidents are officially under investigation by the One Africa Anti-Corruption Task Force. This is not just news. This is history. Smash that like button like you're kicking out colonizers, subscribe like you're joining the Afro-Gold economy, and comment below. Are you ready for clean leadership, or are you still vibing with the tenderpreneur life? Part 1. The day France got kicked out. It happened this morning. A French battalion stationed in the Sahel region was officially ordered to leave African soil after the One Africa Army completed an internal strategic audit.
Reverse type 2 diabetes in record time. Put 1 drop of this revolutionary liquid under your tongue after every meal for...
Why? According to our insider General Umoja, who has previously briefed us on military protocol, French forces were found operating outside of agreed mission parameters, including unauthorized drone flights and suspected data harvesting. In short, France was snooping. Soldiers were seen leaving in convoys under escort from the One Africa Rapid Exit Division. Yes, that's a real unit now. Their job? Escort foreign forces out of Africa peacefully but firmly. Local crowds in the region broke into dance, ululating, and some threw slippers at the armored trucks. One woman shouted, "Next time come with respect, not remote controls." Part 2, the real blow, a shutdown of French military access. Here's what most people don't know. The base France just lost was one of its last remaining military footprints in West Africa, giving them strategic reach over minerals, surveillance, and political influence. By losing this base, France is essentially unplugged. And this isn't just one country's decision. This was voted on during the last virtual session of One Africa Parliament, where members from across 55 nations agreed unanimously. All non-African foreign military operations must submit to continental review by February 2026 or vacate. SABN has now confirmed that 3 more bases are scheduled for shutdown by December 2025. Part 3. But wait, that's not even the juicy part. While France was packing their military leftovers, the One Africa Anti-Corruption Task Force quietly released a classified dossier to the Supreme Continental Court. The contents? Drone footage, financial leaks, and insider testimonies exposing extreme corruption in the leadership of 12 African nations. The drones, part of the elite Sky Witness AI fleet launched under the One Africa Digital Integrity Program, captured convoys delivering luxury cars to remote private villas, bank managers sneaking out cash at night, secret offshore transfers linked to presidential relatives, high-level officials receiving diamonds in lunchboxes. Lunchboxes, my guy. What happened to brown bag sandwiches? Part 4. Who are the 12 presidents? For legal reasons, names haven't officially been published yet, but insiders say 4 from West Africa, 3 from Central Africa, 2 from Sadie, 2 from North Africa, 1 from East Africa. Each of them is now facing preliminary investigation under the One Africa Anti-Corruption Act ratified earlier this year. The act states that any leader proven to have obstructed economic progress, siphoned national assets, or undermined Afrogold integrity shall face immediate investigation, seizure of assets, and suspension from regional governance roles. You see what that means? You can't buy a gold watch with stolen gold anymore. This is a new Africa. Part 5. Where did the task force come from? Remember our viral story a few weeks ago about the anti-corruption drone force approved by the African Union? Well, this is the next chapter. The One Africa Anti-Corruption Task Force was formed quietly under the Office of the Chief Governor's Assembly and is made up of 11 elite cyber analysts from Afrinet's Cybersecurity Division, 6 former forensic investigators from Nigeria, Kenya, and Morocco, 3 undercover journalists from Pan Africa Media, and 1 very suspicious grandmother who sees everything, joking, but also not real. These are the people who reviewed all the drone data and opened these 12 cases. Part 6. The most shocking findings. Let me just read you a few redacted quotes from the leaked report. Open quote. Subject C stored Afrogold reserves under their private swimming pool. Close quote. Open quote. Subject G made 17 unauthorized land sales to French developers during Climate Recovery Summit. Close quote. Open quote. Subject L received $22 million in consultancy fees from a Dubai-based shell company 48 hours before approving a controversial mining contract. Close quote. One Africa Anti-Corruption Task Force said, the audacity is legendary. Some of these presidents are not corrupt, they are creative writers. Part 7. How the people are reacting. Social media has exploded. Kick Out France trended in 6 African countries. Clean Governance Now is trending across university campuses. In Zimbabwe, one user wrote, we kicked out the colonizer. Can we now kick out their agent, please? Meanwhile, on the streets, students in Ghana marched in support of the investigations. Vendors in Kinshasa held up signs reading, we want our Afrogold back. In Senegal, one musician released a diss track titled Presidential Potholes. One Africa vibes are now mixing with real civic fire. Part 8. Where is France now? After the forced-based shutdown, France released a statement saying, open quote, we remain committed to our diplomatic friendship with Africa. Close quote. Meanwhile, their embassy security has tripled. Inside sources in Paris confirmed that President Macron was furious and blindsided, reportedly shouting, open quote, you can't just evict us like tenants, close quote. Sir, rent is overdue. You're lucky you didn't get evicted with a drone. Part 9. Will these presidents go to jail? Here's the legal timeline. Evidence is now in the hands of the Supreme Continental Court. Once verified, the Office of Continental Justice will issue suspension notices. Arrests can only happen after impeachment votes in the One Africa Parliament. But, and this is the big but, if at least 5 countries invoke the Emergency Public Trust Clause, the One Africa Army has legal authority to detain sitting presidents for obstruction. Insiders say the emergency clause may be triggered by December if no cooperation is shown. So, yes, jail is very possible. Orange is the new Agbada. Part 10. Is this the end of old politics? Not yet, but it's a major blow. For decades, corrupt leaders leaned on 2 things: foreign military backup, Western banking protection. But now, foreign troops are being kicked out. Afrogold transactions are monitored continentally. Afrinet allows whistleblowers to report corruption anonymously across all 55 countries. And now even the barber in Bulawayo has real-time access to continental budget leaks. This is not just a shift, it's a revolution. Part 11. Will other foreign powers be next? Sources confirm that 2 U.S. bases are under review. 1 Chinese tech outpost is being investigated for unauthorized surveillance. A Turkish contractor was blacklisted for inflated school building contracts. One Africa is not playing nice anymore. It's playing fair. Africa isn't anti-foreign, it's anti-exploitation. And that's what terrifies the old powers. Final word. Africa already won. Listen, you can't stop something whose time has come. France has been kicked out. 12 presidents are on the edge of collapse. AfroGold is exposing bank accounts that haven't been touched since colonialism. Afronet is giving young Africans the tools to fight corruption, create, and build. To the corrupt, hide your loot. To the clean, shine your boots. To the people, enjoy the show. Because one thing is clear, Africa already won. And to the youth watching this from your phone on dusty data bundles, this is your inheritance. This is your Africa. This is your time. Smash that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, which president do you think should be first to face the anti-corruption court? Tisu Vanhu Bacho, Supreme Africa Breaking News. One Africa, one internet, one currency, one destiny.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am beyond ecstatic because this has been in the works for a very long time. When your mind is right, when your heart is right, when your life in general is right, everything falls in place. The only thing that needs to be changed is your mind. Once that mindset is focused in on and concentrated on or in justice, righteousness, truth, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, everything else falls into place. That is our living ancestral destiny. Unity, unity, unity. So let's keep it moving, and we're making a pretty good pace. This one is called this one Africa law changes everything. No president is safe now.
This One Africa law changes everything. No president is safe now. By Takunda Mabiga, Supreme Africa Breaking News, Tisu Vanhu Bacho. From kings to governors, nobody's above the law anymore. Sharp Part 1. The law that shook power in Addis Ababa. In a classified Amazon-style courier envelope marked confidential, urgent, Supreme Africa Breaking News obtained the final draft of what insiders are calling the most disruptive law in African history. Dubbed the One Africa Transparency and Accountability Act, OATAA, it was quietly approved by the One Africa Parliament in June 2025 after months of secret debates, and it makes no president untouchable. According to Chairman Shadow, an insider in the AU Legislative Council, open quote, "This isn't reform. This is revolution. The act applies continent-wide. From national presidents to regional governors, everyone is now accountable within a single judicial system." Close quote. Yes, bro, they literally changed the game. Part 2, where tradition ends and accountability begins. Subtle power shifts have been whispered about for years. African nations fought corruption, dictatorship, nepotism, but until now, they were battling individually. OATAA unites them. It states, open quote, "Any head of government, local, regional, or national, accused of human rights violations, financial corruption, or unconstitutional seizure of power shall be tried under the One Africa Supreme Court." Close quote. That includes Emerson Mnangagwa, Ibrahim Traore, Cyril Ramaphosa, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, William Ruto, and any regional governor in the new One Africa executive structure. No exceptions, no carryovers. Part 3. What led to this law? The secret leak timeline. Our insiders pieced together the timeline. February 2025, AU Ethics Committee convened in Addis to develop cross-continental judicial reform. April 2025. Draft circulated to heads of state under Chatham House rules. Do not disclose. May 2025. Emergency session in Lusaka. Overwhelming support to finalize the law. June 2025. A low-key signing took place. Few African civil society groups noticed, but insiders were watching. Part 4. Provisions that fear will make leaders sweat. What makes O so revolutionary? Here's a breakdown of key clauses. 1. Supreme Court jurisdiction. No presidential immunity. National courts can no longer block cases once referred to the One Africa Supreme Court. 2. Public wealth disclosure. Every leader must publish assets annually to the AU's transparency portal. 3. Impeachment triggers. Civil suits, media evidence, even social media whistleblower claims can now trigger investigations. 4. External consent prohibition. No leader can seek immunity through foreign alliances. That means no pardons from foreign presidents or companies. 5. Extradition clause. AU enforcement agents can arrest sitting heads of state indicted under OAA anywhere in AU territory. 6. Fast-track trials. Cases must be heard within 12 months to avoid delay in justice. No stalling allowed. Open quote, "It's not paranoia if they're watching," said Protocol Black, a legal advisor within the AU Judiciary Office. Close quote. Part 5. Who pushed to make this law happen? The insider's story. Behind closed doors, this was driven by a coalition of Pan-African civil society organizations, many working with Mama Pan-Africa, AU ethics reform committees, African technocrats trained in anti-corruption policy, younger heads of state like Traore and Ruto, who publicly supported OAA at the Lusaka session. Chairman Shadow said, open quote, "It wasn't just moral, it was strategic. If One Africa is going to hold institutions together, we must trust our systems, not fear a leader." Close quote. Part 6, presidential reactions, on record and off. Here's the drama insiders say played out. On record, most leaders expressed support for transparency. Behind the scenes, a few national leaders reportedly scrawled bullshit in margin notes of the draft. Others allegedly warned that the law could...
Sorry about that.
Civil unrest if misused. One minister reportedly asked, "If we're not safe, where does that leave the presidency? We're kings." But in the end, majority ruled. The vote was nearly unanimous. History was made. Part 7. First cases coming down. No presidency safe. Our correspondents in Lusaka, Pretoria, and Nairobi confirmed preliminary cases now underway. 1. Former Burkina Faso governor accused of embezzling public health funds. 2. Zimbabwe regional governor under house arrest for election bribery. 3. Ethiopian tech minister indicted for digital surveillance misconduct. 4. Minister from a coastal state charged for land grab violations. Each case is being fast-tracked to the One Africa Supreme Court under public scrutiny. African citizens are watching. Justice is no longer theoretical. Part 8. Streets and studio reactions. The power shift hits home. Harare taxi driver, open quote, "Finally the big men can't hide in mansions," close quote. Nairobi University student, open quote, "No one said my vote was just paper. Now the president can lose his job too," close quote. Lagos vendor, open quote, "If the boss steals, he goes to jail, just like us," close quote. Accra Facebook activist, open quote, "We posted a leak. Now they say they're investigating. That's progress," close quote. Part 9. How the West admits this law changes everything. A leaked diplomatic cable from the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria read, open quote, "By removing presidential immunity and enabling extradition for corruption, the AU has created a system we can't influence. Long-lived leaders are now massive liabilities," close quote. In other words, the West can no longer guarantee protection for corrupt clients. Other nations, including Russia and China, are watching with interest and silence. Part 10. Risks, abuses, and guardrails. The fine line. Insiders warn ODA could be misused. Leaders might weaponize it to target opponents. Civil society groups could flood courts with frivolous claims. Regional tensions may flare if extraditions are attempted. But according to Mama Pan-Africa, oversight mechanisms are included. Civil society review boards, public hearings via Afrinet broadcast, rights to appeal within 30 days. regional ombudsmen empowered to flag misuse. This isn't perfect, but for the first time, it's not leader supremacy, it's leader accountability. Part 11, the economic ripple. Market shakes on trust. Trust boosts markets, bro. Investors now feel safer. Speculators in Johannesburg report asset flows increasing in countries with strong transparency ratings. Afrostock trading blockchain implementation tied to public disclosures. Corporate governance reforms now required for AU contracts. World Bank advisors quietly told clients, open quote, if your country enforces OATA properly, investment risk drops by 40%. Close quote, bro. That's a continent building moment. Part 12, comedy break. Africa's style of speaking truth. Meme trending in Lusaka. Open quote, the only safe place is under the same law as the president. Close quote. In Zimbabwe bars, open quote, Mnangagwa on trial? Gotta love African drama now. Close quote. Nigerian joke, open quote, if the law says no immunity, tell Ruto to leave his throne at the gates. Close quote. Tech people, open quote, every app now needs public disclosure compliance? Let me write that script. Close quote. Part 13, what's next? The go-to-case scenario. Insiders expect new cases filed every week, presidential asset disclosures appearing on the AU Transparency Portal, civil rights groups launching Know Your Leader tools via Afronet, first extradition hearings live-streamed, public backlash if politicians block investigations. At least 6 more presidents are under preliminary review. Tensions are rising, but so is legitimacy. Part 14, Takunda's final word. Africa just created real accountability. Traditionally, leaders ruled by fear. Now they must rule through service, or serve through trial. This isn't about vengeance, it's about responsible leadership. It's about asking, open quote, are you here to lead or to take? Close quote. Oda rewrites the script. No more safe spaces. No more hidden mansions. Now every African can ask, open quote, what's in your asset disclosure? What did you do with our money? Close quote. That's power. That's justice. That's One Africa law in action. Part 15. Sabian style, like, if you believe no leader is above the law. Comment, should leaders be tried publicly? Share this with every young person who wants change. Subscribe to Saban, where leaks become landmarks, and justice gets wired into code. This is Takunda Mabika, from the court that will serve all, presidents included, Tisu Banhu Bacho. Now, every leader has to answer, eternally.
All right. We are on the way, ladies and gentlemen. Black power. Gotta make our ancestors proud. So let's try to backtrack a little bit and see where we are and where we're going. And it should be pretty obvious that when you become the owner of your own vibe, your own frequency, your own anything in this world that we live in, it is a must that we as a people act as one. United we stand and take over, divided we fall and stay in the same shithole. It's just that simple. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. United we stand and divided we take over. And united we stand and divided we stay in the same shithole. There's no doubt about that. And I am truly blessed to be able to live and to be able to see this happening. I wish I could be a little younger, like 30 years younger, so I can see the future of what we are about to do and what we are doing and what we will continue to do to dominate and to solidify our power, political, economic, spiritual, and physical power. Because now the black man, when he speaks, when we speak, it's over. Sit your ass down, don't move, shut the fuck up, and do what we're telling you to do. So the white boy done had his time. He done fucked up. And now it's our turn. The tables have turned, my brothers and sisters. The tables have turned. They're going to get better and better. So without further ado, I'm going to play this one. This one is called One African Government now demands all Western troops leave Asia and Middle East and Solidarity Pact. Calle.
Shock. One Africa government now demands all Western troops leave Asia and Middle East in Solidarity Pact. By Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Banhubacha. When Africa rises, the world listens. And now, the world obeys. The flashback. 2 days ago, we broke a story here at SIBN. A One Africa Army delegation stormed the UN headquarters in New York. Their mission? To demand the UN recognize the One Africa government as a single permanent member with full Security Council powers. Insiders told us then that Western diplomats were scrambling, panicked, and blocking Africa's push for recognition. The UN stalled. The West whispered. Africa left furious. Now, just days later, the African response has gone global and nuclear in scale. Part 2, the breaking point. According to Shadow Unit Zulu, our invisible eyes within Africa's top command, the trigger came during intelligence briefings on Western troop movements across the Middle East. General Umoja reportedly showed Parliament maps of Western military bases stretched like a chain from Iraq to Qatar to Afghanistan. He warned that these bases were being reinforced, not reduced, even after promises of de-escalation. Colonel Nia Kente, our seasoned insider, confirmed what the generals told Parliament. These deployments are not just about the Middle East. They are about surrounding Africa's new oil power and strangling Afrogold before it matures. Part 3, the emergency parliament session. At 5:30 CAT, the One Africa Parliament gathered in Addis Ababa under emergency order. The hall was packed. Every delegation, every minister, every general. Mama Pan-Africa rose first. Eyewitnesses inside the chamber say her speech set the tone. If Africa is to be free, so must be our brothers and sisters in Asia and the Middle East. We cannot carry the chains of history while they remain shackled beside us. The applause was thunderous. By the end of the session, the vote was cast. One Africa officially demands all Western troops leave Asia and the Middle East within 12 months. Part 4, the Solidarity Pact. This demand is not just talk. It comes under the framework of the Global South Solidarity Pact, signed secretly last month between the AU, BRICS leaders, and several Middle Eastern governments. The pact states clearly, no Western military presence in Global South territory without explicit approval. Security to be managed by regional alliances, not foreign powers. Economic independence tied to Afrogold and BRICS trade systems. This pact was the quiet seed. Today, it has sprouted into a full-grown tree, shaking the foundations of the old world order. Part 5, the Global South Security Council. To enforce this new demand, Africa and its allies have launched the Global South Security Council, GSSC. Headquarters, split between Addis Ababa and Jakarta. Leadership, rotating presidency between Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Forces, combined military exercises planned under the codename Operation Rising Shield. General Umoja has already confirmed that AU peacekeepers will be deployed alongside Middle Eastern allies to monitor troop withdrawals. Part 6, Western Panic. The reaction from the West was instant. Washington, this is an unacceptable overreach. London, security cannot be dictated by outsiders. Paris, destabilizing and provocative. But leaked memos intercepted by Shadow Unit Zulu show the truth behind the rhetoric. One Pentagon note reportedly reads, if Africa succeeds in enforcing this demand, Western global force projection collapses. Part 7, the Middle Eastern response. In Baghdad, thousands marched through the streets waving AU flags alongside Iraqi banners. In Tehran, state media hailed Africa as the sword and shield of the oppressed. In Jakarta, students gathered outside embassies chanting, "One Africa, one Asia, one South." Even Saudi Arabia, long aligned with Western powers, has reportedly opened secret back channels with the AU Parliament to explore cooperation under the Global South Solidarity Pact.
Hold on.
Part 8. Why this matters for oil and Afrogold. This is not only military, it is economic. The AU Energy Council announced last week already controls global oil prices. Africa's demand to remove Western troops from the Middle East now protects those oil flows from outside interference. By linking energy security with Afrogold trade, Africa and its allies are creating a shielded economic zone where oil, gas, and minerals move freely, but only under Global South terms. The economist of Addis summed it up in one chilling line. The West's armies guarded their supply routes. Now Africa's armies will guard ours. Part 9. Operation Rising Shield details are emerging of a massive joint exercise planned for later this year. Operation Rising Shield will involve AU naval patrols in the Red Sea and Persian Gulf, Middle Eastern Air Forces training with AU fighter squadrons, Asian cyber units integrating with Afrinet's security firewall. Colonel Nia Kente told SABN the message is simple. The Global South can defend itself. Foreign troops are no longer required. Part 10. The dream expands across Africa. Celebrations erupted as the news spread. In Lagos, crowds gathered around giant screens chanting, "Africa leads, the world follows." In Cairo, students painted murals of African and Arab soldiers standing side by side, shields raised. In Johannesburg, AfroGold trading platforms saw record new signups. For the first time, ordinary Africans feel they are not just liberating their own continent, they are liberating half the world. Part 11, the risks ahead. Make no mistake, the road is dangerous. Western powers may respond with economic sanctions, secret attempts to bribe or divide AU leaders, military maneuvers near African and Middle Eastern waters. But insiders say the AU is prepared. A confidential defense report obtained by SABN warns of counter-pressure, but concludes, the solidarity of billions cannot be broken by the threats of a few. Part 12, a new era. This is bigger than Africa. This is bigger than Asia. This is the dawn, Global South era. The One Africa government has extended its influence across continents, demanding not just respect, but compliance. The Global South Solidarity Pact is no longer theory, it is reality. And as Mama Pan-Africa declared before Parliament, echoed now in streets from Cairo to Jakarta, we have been divided for centuries. Today we rise united. Tomorrow we govern the earth. Closing words. SEN has reported the rise of Afrinet, the birth of AfroGold, the creation of the AU Energy Council, and Africa's walkout from the UN. But today's story eclipses them all. Africa now speaks not just for itself, but for the entire Global South. The demand is simple, Western troops out, and the message is clear. The world is no longer theirs to patrol. It is ours to protect. Tisu Vanhu Vacha. History belongs to the bold, and Africa is writing it in capital letters.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, but if you can't see it by now, you will see it in live, on TV, on everywhere. Because starting in February 26, on February the 26th, 2026, excuse me, it is on and popping. I don't know what to tell you, but get your popcorn, because now you are seeing the change happening, period. So now we're going to go into a video dealing with an Italian general who's telling you what the hell is going on in Europe. And I will be right back.
So much for returning. Trust you and yours are well, and you're loving yourself and others like always. Many thanks to all of you for the support you give to the channel. Thank you so much to our channel members, to our anonymous supporters, to all of you my team subscribers. You're loved, celebrated, and of course appreciated. There is a message. Remember, I told you that these people are fully aware that their end is coming gradually. I told you here that they know that Europe is falling. And some of you say, don't say Europe is falling, say France is falling. Okay, let's listen to this. I will take it up from there.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from your respective positions. Once again, you are welcome here on the Awakening Tech Conscience platform. This is the headline of international news, the blunt remarks made by the Italian general known as Marco Bertolini. Marco Bertolini spoke clearly and directly to the Europeans. He made them understand what the Europeans do not want to understand. Where have we seen a European be so direct with the Europeans? We are talking about Italy. These are sensible words spoken by the Italian general. He tells the whole truth concerning Russia. I simply ask you to share this video and watch it until the end. So, he begins by saying this. He says, let us be aware of this, especially for our children and those who will follow us, because after this, it will be too late. He says, the European Union of peace no longer exists. The European Union of peace no longer exists. This means that he is telling Europe to realize that the European Union that now exists is a union for war. He continues by saying, if indeed it ever existed. That is to say, the European Union, as it currently stands, has reached a level that has never existed before. Continues by saying this, that the European Union died with the belligerent support given to Ukraine. Since the European Union began supporting Ukraine, the European Union has disappeared. He says, and with the war against the Russian Federation. So, supporting Ukraine and waging war against the Russian Federation, that was the biggest mistake of the European Union. And according to this general, that's what made the European Union disappear. He is a general. He says this. The European Union is in the hands of a group of vile adventurers. They, who for their own profit and vile money, gather under the command oath of a nation. The United Kingdom, which left the European Union, and now positions itself at the head of the remaining European countries, to lead us all into war to achieve its historical objective. You see, this general says that it is the United Kingdom that is at the core, because the United Kingdom has an objective. They left the European Union, and now they are coming back to take the lead of the European Union, to direct all European countries against the Russian Federation. But looking at what the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is doing with Emmanuel Macron, practice, we immediately see the logic in what this general is saying. Imagine that the general spoke, but just yesterday, we saw the largest warship, the most formidable Russian warship off the coast of France, on the move, and it came to intervene to help France. But it is the United Kingdom, it is Great Britain. So, this general really spoke. I ask you to share the video. Please give it a lot of likes. He says, what is the historical objective of the United Kingdom? It is to destroy Russia, to break it up into a number of small vassal states, and plunder its immense resources with their classic colonialist mindset. So, he clearly says that the United Kingdom wants to colonize Russia, that is, to destroy Russia. There is no more Putin and others. United Kingdom will seize Russia, cut it into small pieces, and then sell off and plunder its wealth. So, he continues, he says, European elites quickly forget. They forget the disasters that struck all those who, from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth from 1632 to 1634, to the Swedish Empire from 1788 to 1790, from Napoleon in 1813 to Hitler in 1941, attempted to conquer Russian territories. So they recall dates, all those who tried to conquer Russian territories. They forget what happened to them. Then he reads, the Europeans would like to attack Russia again today, forgetting their history on the various dates he mentioned. The Europeans are once again bringing war and destruction to Europe. He says, The paradox is that this war is desired by everyone, by all those who have so far waved the flags of peace and spoken of a Europe of peace, freedom, and democracy, precisely at the moment when the USA and the Russian Federation are reaching a peace agreement. At a time when the USA and Russia are in the process of reaching a peace agreement, the very people in Europe who are promoting a Europe of peace and freedom are now provoking war through and with the support of the United Kingdom, who has their own interests. You know, in this matter, everyone has their personal interest. France's personal interest in this matter, in this war, is how to obtain resources, some rare resources, to fuel its military industry. Great Britain also has the same objective, how to occupy the entire Russian territory. The United States, they have understood that they can do nothing. American intelligence services are very powerful. They have therefore gathered all the necessary information to show Donald Trump to what extent Russia is ready. I'm telling you that even the commander, of the NATO joint forces made a report to say that Russia is ready. So, this general you see there, he's speaking. He has spoken. He says, hypocritical Europeans. He says, that is why I sincerely hope that this horrible union, I won't say the rest, oligarchic, warmongering, authoritarian and anti-popular, will soon fail, and that European states will be free. So, this is what the gentleman says. In truth, Europeans simply need to have ears to listen and understand, to have discernment. What must be said first is that the truth is, some Europeans have started to understand, especially in France, as we have recently seen large mobilizations taking place in France. We have seen students coming out, trade unionists coming out. There is also a range of mobilizations currently underway. So, we hope that other Europeans will understand in the same way. Otherwise, Russia is very ready. The proof is there. The simple statement from a report made by France, where it is said that Macron wants to send a nuclear message to Russia. Russia responded yesterday, not even 48 hours. And it created a panic in France. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the headline of the news. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I'll get back to you shortly. That was the voice of your one and only samurai.
All right, Majesties, we have listened to that. That was an Italian military general who had said all of this. And I think he is beginning to sit down and think critically about the whole situation in the world as it is right now, and how they have been involved in destroying mankind. And I think he's understanding that they themselves will be the destruction of themselves, since they are bent on destroying other people. So how can your sole objective be to destroy another man's land and take out another man's life? I don't understand. You have large meetings, large audiences, just to sit down to plan how you can invade another man's kingdom. Just like that. When there is no war, these people are not happy. It is they themselves who use their hand to destroy themselves, since they are so much bent on killing each other. And this is where the wisdom is seen in the discussion I had with you of that young man who was calling Africans and those of African descent not to side with Iran or Israel or America, because they are the same people who have decided to destroy their lives. And do you know that it is the same thing they want Africa to begin to do? They want African countries to begin to turn against each other. That is the sole reason why they propagated the ideas of every African nation having their own separate army, and they do not want Africa to unite to have one single army. Because they know that there will be a time when they can instigate different countries in the continent against each other so that we can begin to kill each other like they are doing to themselves now. This is the sole reason why Pan-Africans across the world, across the continent, is drawing our minds most of the times, and not all of the time, to the fact that your brother is never your enemy. Do not make the mistake of looking at your neighboring country as the cause of your problem. Because there is always a force that is ready, always, to destroy the peace that we have amongst ourselves as Africans. Even if you look at Abigail as a wicked person, a bad person, or you think that Abigail is siding with some countries who are going to other people's countries, destroying them, I will still want to draw your mind to the fact that we should be very careful when we are dealing with issues like this. Do not get it twisted. Whoever you see in your nation destroying your nation, doing things that should not be done, bring that person to book. Prosecute that person according to the law of the land. But be careful to make it a general something that you have to involve the whole country. Be careful in eagerly trying to cause chaos between two nations, pitching one nation against the other. We have to be very careful as Africans, especially content creators who are always ready to pick their microphone and say this country is this, that country is that, this country is going to this person's country to do this. Instigating, I believe you understand, there are Africans who are okay to instigate fellow nations against each other. And that is why you will hardly see me here saying that this country is solely evil, that country is solely good. We have to be careful because there is a thin line. These people are always prepared to take advantage of situations. I just hope that the ancestors open our eyes to see beyond and understand the tactics that these people always use to take advantage of us as Africans. I'm going to see you in my next one. What do you think about the situation? Leave your thoughts and opinion there at the section. Until then, love yourself, love others, stay safe, stay positive, always your mind is safe. Bye for now.
Oh, you heard it. I don't know how to say it other than just to be direct about it. That white folks ain't shit. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They don't know why they're doing it. They're just doing some shit just to be doing it because they have the power to do it. With great power come great responsibility. And they're not responsible at all. And it's very important as a man, as a woman, as a father, as a mother, as an adult, living amongst other adults. You must be that pillar of responsibility, character, of integrity, you name it, in order to allow the future children of our countries to develop and to become strong men and women can take over and keep on pushing. If we don't, then I don't know. It'll be hell to pay because we have been irresponsible. So the next one is dealing with what we just talked about, what I just talked about. Africa, China, and Russia just announced single gold-backed currency, the dollar collapsing. This is what is happening, you guys. I mean, if you can't see it, I can't help you. But the idea is still the same. Unity. When we have black unity on the continent and across the globe, the world will come to you. The world will come and do what it needs to do in order to bring about that win-win situation. And this is exactly what is going on in Africa. We're not asking, we're telling. I'll be right back.
Breaking. Africa, China, and Russia just announced single gold-backed currencies. Dollar collapses. By Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Vanhuvacha. When Africa's gold speaks, even the dollar trembles. Part 1. The Hidden Foundation. For months, whispers have circled across Africa's financial corridors. Transactions in local currencies were not as local as they seemed. Insiders from Nairobi to Lagos, from Cairo to Johannesburg, told us something was different. Coffee exports cleared faster. Oil sales settled in hours instead of weeks. Now we know why. AfroGold, the African Union's gold-backed pilot currency, has been quietly tested under the cover of local currencies. Ordinary citizens saw Naira, Rand, or Shilling. But behind the curtain, those trades were being settled in AfroGold. Hidden, quiet, but very real. Shadow Unit Zulu obtained encrypted memos from AU central banks confirming these pilot projects. One line stood out. AfroGold transactions tested at 100% efficiency, system ready for regional expansion. Part 2. The Johannesburg meeting. 2 weeks ago, Johannesburg played host not only to the public BRICS Plus summit, but also to a closed-door session few knew about. According to the economist of Addis, who has close ties inside the AU Commission, this was the meeting where the idea of a joint gold-backed currency was formally tabled. Attendees included senior AU finance ministers, Russian central bank officials, and Chinese monetary strategists. The agenda: merge AfroGold pilots with Russian and Chinese gold-backed frameworks into a single system. By the end of the night, the principle was agreed. The world's first Africa-China-Russia gold-backed joint currency was born in concept. Part 3. Why gold? Why now? For centuries, gold has been Africa's curse and blessing. It built pharaohs' tombs, funded empires, and was stolen to mint Western wealth. Now, gold is becoming Africa's weapon. The US dollar, euro, and pound are not backed by gold. They are backed by trust. Trust that is cracking under debt, inflation, and endless sanctions. Meanwhile, Africa, Russia, and China hold enormous gold reserves. By anchoring trade in gold, the new currency cannot be printed into worthlessness. It is real wealth, tangible, heavy, undeniable. As Mama Pan Africa told Parliament, our gold built their empires. Now it builds ours. Part 4. The currency itself. Insiders reveal the working name, Aurora, symbolizing a golden dawn. Key features: fully backed by physical gold reserves in Johannesburg, Moscow, and Shanghai. Transactions processed through the AU Global Payment Network, AEPN, and BRICS payment systems. Local currencies still in use domestically. But cross-border trade settles in Aurora. Security enforced by Afronet's encrypted firewall. Colonel Nia Kente told SABN, the system is designed to survive attack. They can sanction, they can block, they can hack. But gold does not vanish. Aurora is unbreakable. Part 5. The dollar problem. For decades, the US dollar has been the global reserve currency. Oil, gas, and raw materials all priced in dollars. That meant every nation needed dollars, giving Washington ultimate leverage. But with Aurora, Africa, China, and Russia no longer need the dollar, nor do their trading partners. Already, whispers from India, Brazil, Iran, and even Saudi Arabia suggest they are considering aligning trade with the gold-backed unit once it launches. The economist of Addis summarized the threat in one chilling phrase: this is not de-dollarization. This is dollar collapse. Part 6. The pilot proof. The power of AfroGold pilots gave this proposal credibility. In one hidden test, Nigeria sold crude oil to India. The invoice showed Naira, but the settlement cleared in AfroGold through AUGPN. The trade finalized in hours, bypassing SWIFT. In another, Kenya imported machinery from China. The official paperwork listed shillings, but behind the scenes, AfroGold settled the deal. These successful tests proved to Russia and China that Africa's system was ready. Aurora was not theory, it was proven reality, waiting for scale. Part 7. Western panic. The West is not blind. Shadow Unit Zulu intercepted memos from both Washington and Brussels. One EU briefing note reportedly said, if Africa, China, and Russia align on gold, the Eurozone faces systemic risk. In Washington, an IMF insider warned, this is the most serious challenge to dollar dominance since World War II. Markets trembled, gold prices surged, the dollar index dipped. Wall Street analysts whispered of a new financial Cold War. Part 8. The Global South Response. In contrast, the Global South erupted with excitement. In Caracas, Venezuela's finance minister said, "Africa brings the gold, Russia the energy, China the industry. Together, they bring freedom." In Tehran, state TV declared Aurora the currency of resistance. In Jakarta, students carried banners reading, "One South, one coin." Even Brazil hinted at joining, calling Aurora a path to sovereignty. Part 9. The Security Framework. The One Africa Army and allied forces are preparing to secure this currency physically and digitally. Gold vaults in Johannesburg, Moscow, and Shanghai guarded by elite units. Naval patrols protecting shipping lanes carrying gold shipments. Afrinet upgraded to encrypt Aurora transactions against cyber warfare. General Umoja reportedly declared, "Every bar of gold is a fortress. Every coin is a shield. Aurora will not fall." Part 10. How it shakes the world. The implications are massive. 1. Sanctions neutralized. Western sanctions depend on SWIFT and dollar dominance. Aurora bypasses both. 2. Dollar demand falls. If major economies shift to Aurora for trade, global demand for dollars collapses. 3. Debt crisis. Nations holding trillions in dollar reserves suddenly question their value. 4. Energy shift. Oil and gas priced in Aurora destabilizes petrodollar contracts. Analysts warn this could trigger a global financial war. The opening shots already fired. Part 11. The risks. This bold step is not without danger. Western powers may launch cyber attacks against AUGPN, pressure weaker AU leaders to defect, use military threats to protect dollar supremacy. But insiders insist Africa, Russia, and China are prepared. One leaked memo from the AU read, "They cannot invade half the planet. The South is too many. The dollar is too few." Part 12. The dream expands across Africa. Ordinary people are catching the dream. In Lagos, artists paint murals of golden coins with the word Aurora. In Nairobi, traders imagine a future without currency shortages. In Johannesburg, students chant, "Our gold, our rules." For the first time, Africans feel their gold is not being stolen, but invested into a system that lifts them with others. The symbolism. Aurora is more than money. It is symbolism. For centuries, Africa's gold left the continent in chains. Now, Africa offers that same gold to unite continents in freedom. As Mama Pan-Africa said in Parliament, Africa does not stand alone. We stand with allies who respect our gold, not thieves who plunder it. Aurora is our promise to history. Part 14. The next steps. The timeline is still secret, but insiders tell SABN. Technical integration is already underway. Public announcement could come within 12 months. First test trades with Russia and China may happen this year, disguised under local currency invoices but settled in Aurora. This staged rollout ensures the system matures before the West can sabotage it. Part 15. Closing words. The old order is trembling. For the first time since World War II, the dollar's throne shakes. Not from bombs, not from battleships, but from Africa's gold. AfroGold was the test. Aurora is the launch. From Cape Town to Moscow to Beijing, a new empire of trade, wealth, and sovereignty is rising. Not one built on debt, but on the timeless solidity of gold. Tisu Bantu Bacha, the people who turned stolen treasure into shared destiny.
Wow. Oh, wow. I just want to take a time to look at this and to read it to you guys. Breaking. Africa, China, and Russia just announced single gold-backed currency, the dollar collapse. Africa's hidden pilot with AfroGold. That was the trick to get you off of the real deal. The Aurora had now exploded into a global proposal. And a closed-door meeting between the African Union, China, and Russia. Insider confirmed that leaders have agreed in principle to create the world's first single gold-backed joint currency. The project, built on Africa's AfroGold pilots, already running quietly under local currency, would anchor trade to real gold reserves in Johannesburg, Moscow, and Shanghai. Transactions would be cleared through the AU Global Payment Network and BRICS systems, bypassing SWIFT and cutting the US dollar out of global trade. Western capitals are already in panic. Big members, Washington and Brussels, warned this move could trigger a collapse of the dollar dominance and unleash a new era of financial warfare. Meanwhile, across the global south, celebrations are growing, from Caracas to Tehran to Jakarta, where leaders hail this as the dawn of a new financial order. This is not just about money, it is about sovereignty. Centuries, Africa's gold was stolen to mint Western wealth. Today, Africa is using its gold to mint a new alliance, one that could rewrite the rules of global economy forever. You got that one right, and I can see where this is going. So, kudos to all of those who were a part of the growth of AfroGold and now Aurora. And you should be able to see what the hell is going on and what that means, how that means, why that means, and why Africa will be supreme for eternity. We'll get into that in one more second. So, let's keep it moving and we'll see what's going on.
World War fears. One Africa government just joined BRICS as a single voting power. Russia and China back movement. By Takunda Mabika. Supreme Africa breaking news. Tisu Vanhu Bacho. And today, my brothers and sisters, we are back with an update that might just make the West choke on their morning coffee. You remember, just a few weeks ago, we told you exclusively that Russia and China were quietly pushing for the One Africa government to join BRICS as a single voting bloc. Back then, it was whispers in corridors, leaked talking points, and those closed-door AU sessions that nobody was supposed to talk about. Well, today, those whispers have turned into deep, loud voices in the conference rooms. Our insiders are telling us that the talks have reached what one diplomat dramatically called the zenith point, the final stage where everything is being framed for the signing table. No more theory. No more maybe one day. The technical teams are finalizing the deal. Part 1, from whispers to the zenith point. Our source, yes, the ever-reliable Chairman Shadow, told us that the African Union's special BRICS Integration Task Force met last week in Addis Ababa. They had one agenda, framing the final agreement that will give Africa one seat, one vote in BRICS. And let me explain why this is huge. For years, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, operated with 5 votes, 5 voices. Now imagine replacing South Africa's single vote with an entire continent's united vote representing 1.5 billion people. The balance of power in global geopolitics tilts overnight. One stroke of a pen, and suddenly Africa is no longer begging to sit at the table. Africa is the table. Chairman Shadow says Russia and China are in complete alignment on this. Why? Because a united Africa inside BRICS means a permanent majority in any vote that challenges the Western-controlled IMF, World Bank, and G7 policies. Part 2, the final framework. What's on the table? Now, the framing stage is all about locking in the details. Here's what's inside the draft agreement, according to our insiders. 1, one seat, one vote. Africa will have the same voting weight as any BRICS member. Whether it's trade, sanctions, or security matters, the AU president will cast Africa's vote. 2, AfroGold in BRICS payments. From day one, BRICS transactions involving Africa will use AfroGold, the upcoming gold-backed continental currency. This means less dependency on the US dollar in African trade. 3. Zero tariff BRICS trade. African exports, from cocoa to cobalt, will enter BRICS markets without tariffs. Yes, even your aunt's cashew nuts could find a market in China without paying extra. 4. Security coordination. The One Africa Army will participate in BRICS security drills. Rumor has it there's even a classified clause about cyber defense cooperation between AU intelligence units and BRICS members. 5. Investment guarantees. BRICS members will commit to long-term infrastructure funding for African railways, ports, and energy grids, with repayment in resources, not in cash loans. Part 3. The comedy in the corridors. But my people, you know African politics can't stay 100% serious for long. Inside these meetings, comedy is hiding in every corner. One delegate from West Africa apparently thought BRICS stood for Bring Rice in Case of Shortage. Another delegate reportedly nodded off during a 3-hour currency integration presentation, only to wake up when someone mentioned no more IMF loans and shout, "Where do I sign?" And then there's the rumor that one president's translator kept saying BRICS with a K, so he thought they were discussing construction materials for new presidential palaces. Part 4. The pushback. West is not amused. Now, don't think for a second that this is going unnoticed in Washington, Paris, or London. According to a leaked cable, Western diplomats have been warning African capitals that joining BRICS as one bloc could trigger economic isolation measures. Translation? Sanctions. The IMF and World Bank are allegedly dangling special emergency funding packages in front of certain African finance ministers, but only if the AU delays signing. It's the same old carrot and stick game we've seen for decades. One AU economic advisor told us off the record, the West is in panic mode. They know that if Africa goes BRICS, they lose their best playground. Part 5. Russia and China, playing the long game.
When I started drinking warm water to help my prostate, my friends laughed at me. But when they saw I no longer ran to the bathroom.
Moscow and Beijing aren't just cheerleading from the sidelines. They're actively shaping the deal. Russian negotiators are said to be offering military technology transfers in exchange for Africa's commitment to vote with them on key BRICS resolutions. China, on the other hand, is focusing on infrastructure. One insider says Beijing has already prepared a BRICS Africa connectivity map, a 20-year plan to connect African ports, rail lines, and data centers directly into BRICS logistics networks. Both Russia and China understand something critical. Africa is the future market, the resource bank, and the strategic partner they need to counterbalance the West. Part 6. Inside the Addis meeting. Leaks from Chairman Shadow. Chairman Shadow's notes from the meeting read like a movie script. Heated arguments over whether Africa's vote should be cast by the AU president alone or through a quick continental consultation. Northern African states pushing for guarantees that AfroGold will be convertible into other BRICS currencies instantly. A SADC delegate warning that if the deal isn't signed before the next G7 meeting, Western intelligence will ramp up divide and delay operations across Africa. At one point, someone joked that the AU should ask BRICS to include a clause banning former colonizers from giving unsolicited economic advice. The room erupted. Part 7, the security angle. World war fears. Here's where the World War part comes in. Military analysts we spoke to say that if Africa officially aligns with BRICS, NATO could interpret it as a hostile geopolitical shift, especially with the One Africa Army involved in joint exercises. Think about it. Africa, Russia, and China coordinating militarily means Western bases in Africa suddenly look like foreign outposts surrounded by unfriendly territory. That's not a small shift. That's a strategic earthquake. Our military insider, General Umoja, told us, this is the first time in modern history where Africa is not the battleground. Africa is the chess player. Part 8. African public opinion. On the streets of Lagos, Johannesburg, and Nairobi, the mood is mixed but passionate. Some see BRICS as Africa's ticket to independence from the dollar. Others fear that swapping one set of powerful friends for another just changes the flag over the gate. But here's the twist. Polls conducted quietly by AU think tanks show that a majority of Africans, over 60%, support joining BRICS as a single bloc, provided AfroGold becomes the main trade currency. Part 9. The deadline pressure. Our insiders say the deal must be ready for signature before the AU's annual summit in Addis Ababa later this year. Why? Because that's when the new One Africa government structures will be officially launched, and BRICS wants Africa in as one united government from day one. If they miss that window, the next chance could be a year away, giving Western powers 12 whole months to sow doubt and division. Chairman Shadow says, it's like a wedding. The guests are seated, the music is playing. But if the bride doesn't walk in now, some people might leave. Part 10, the cliffhanger. As we speak, African lawyers are fine-tuning the legal language. BRICS envoys are preparing for a signing ceremony, and Western diplomats are working overtime to convince certain AU leaders to pause for reflection. If the AU signs, the day after will be remembered as the moment Africa shifted the global balance of power permanently. If they delay, the dream of a united African BRICS vote could fade back into the shadows. And my brothers and sisters, that's where we leave you, for now. We brought you the whispers weeks ago. Today, we brought you the framework. Next time, who knows? We might bring you the footage of the pen hitting the paper. This is Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Van Hubache. Stay watching. The world might be about to change.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're making some really good time here. For those who might see it later, I am truly dedicated to bringing you the news as to what is going on in this world and how it may affect you directly or indirectly. And that's what this show is all about. Straight talk. No sugarcoating, no playing games, no misinformation with disinformation. It is what it is. So, without further ado, let's keep it moving. This one is called One Africa Army. Yet took control of the Suez Canal. West completely cut off.
Army just took control of the Suez Canal. West completely cut off. By Takunda Mabika. Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Van Hubacho. The defenders of Africa are wide awake, and if you thought Africa was still just attending conferences and sipping bottled water while the West played Monopoly with our resources, nope. Today, Africa didn't just join the game. We flipped the board. Because according to an exclusive leak from not one, but two of our insiders, General Umoja and Protocol Black, the African Union has just placed One Africa Army forces in joint control of the Suez Canal. That's right. The traffic jam of the century is about to get a brand new traffic cop, and he's wearing AU camouflage. Part 1, the secret meeting that changed everything. Last week, deep inside AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, a special emergency summit was called, not on the public calendar. No press releases. Even the caterers had to sign NDAs. On the agenda, a single line in bold, Suez Corridor, African Maritime Sovereignty. According to General Umoja, the atmosphere in the room was tense. On one side of the table, Egypt's delegation led by Admiral Mahmoud Faki, head of the Suez Canal Authority. On the other, AU chairperson João Lourenço, flanked by senior One Africa Army generals and naval commanders. Egypt opened with a cautious proposal, joint patrols along the Red Sea to combat piracy and safeguard cargo ships. But the AU team? They wanted more. They wanted direct operational presence inside the Suez Canal traffic control centers. They wanted AU flagships positioned at both Port Said in the north and Suez City in the south. And most of all, they wanted an iron guarantee that no African shipment could ever be blocked or delayed by external pressures. Translation, Western sanctions or political games. The Egyptians hesitated. Then, after 3 hours of closed-door bargaining, a handshake. The deal was signed under what insiders are calling the African Maritime Freedom Pact. Part 2. The first AU soldiers at the Suez. 2 days later, quietly and without fanfare, the first One Africa Army naval security team boarded a flight to Cairo. From there, military transport carried them to the canal. No parades, no loud announcements, just a new patch on the uniforms reading OAA, Maritime Command. Inside the Port Said control room, AU officers were briefed on traffic management, cargo scanning, and emergency procedures. But according to Protocol Black, These briefings were mostly formalities. The AU had already been tracking every ship entering the canal via satellite for over a year. One AU officer reportedly joked, "We've been watching this place from the sky. Now we're just here to drink their coffee and plug in our own computers."
What if I told you could supercharge your streaming setup with just $15 a month? Let me show you.
Part 3. Why this move changes everything. For decades, the Suez Canal has been the world's shortcut between Europe and Asia. 12% of all global trade passes through it. Oil, gas, electronics, even your fancy smartphone parts, all sail through those waters. By securing a joint operational role, the AU has effectively placed Africa in the heart of one of the most strategic choke points on Earth. This means no more Western bypassing of African trade lanes. Direct AU oversight of shipments heading to and from Africa. The ability to prioritize African cargo during global crises. General Umoja told us bluntly, this is about leverage. The West has always had it. Now Africa has it too. Part 4, the Western Panic Button. The leak of this operation didn't come from Africa. Oh no, it came from London, where a senior shipping insurance executive spilled the beans over drinks. Within hours, Bloomberg and Reuters were running exclusive alerts about African forces now active in the Suez. By sunrise in Paris and Washington, calls were flying between Western trade ministries. A leaked email from a European trade advisor literally read, "If Africa can slow our goods at the Suez, they can control our supply chains." Translation, they're sweating. Part 5, African street reactions, comedy gold. In Nairobi, one Boda Boda rider said, "So now even my onions from Mombasa to Cairo have VIP security? Next time, I want to send myself through the canal too." In Lagos, a street vendor laughed. "We took back the gold, the oil, the diamonds. Now we're taking the water." Next stop, London Bridge. Even in Harare, my neighbor's uncle, who hasn't been to the sea in his life, told me, "Takunda, tell them to also send AU soldiers to my borehole. Too many people are drawing from it without clearance." Part 6. The quiet billionaire influence. This move wasn't purely military. Our insiders confirm African billionaires like Strive Masiyiwa and Patrice Motsepe have been quietly lobbying for African maritime sovereignty for years. Why? Because control of sea lanes means cheaper, safer shipping for African-owned companies. No more paying security premiums to Western firms just to move goods through African-linked waters. Masiyiwa's Liquid Telecom is reportedly preparing secure data link between Suez control centers and AU headquarters, ensuring real-time monitoring of every vessel relevant to African trade. Part 7. What happens next? The African Maritime Freedom Pact has a 6-month review clause. If both AU and Egypt agree, Africa's role in the Suez could expand to full African-led security patrols in the southern Red Sea, training Egyptian crews in AU naval protocols, integrating Suez operations with the One Africa Navy Command in Djibouti. And yes, insiders say Djibouti is the next hotspot. Part 8, Western alternative routes, already failing. As soon as the news broke, Western trade officials floated the idea of rerouting shipments via the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa. Problem? That route adds 2 to 3 weeks to shipping times. Fuel costs skyrocket. And here's the kicker. The Cape route is already patrolled by AU naval forces under a different maritime agreement. So in short, there is no escape. Part 9, African Unity in Action. From Cape Town to Cairo, social media is flooded with AU flags, memes of African generals directing ship traffic, and jokes about charging toll fees in Afro gold. One trending post simply reads, "Dear West, your cargo is safe, but we are in charge now, regards Africa." Part 10, the big picture. This is not just about ships, it's about psychology. For decades, the West has assumed Africa must always pass through their gates to trade. Today, Africa walked into one of the West's gates and took a seat at the security desk. And here's the real twist. Most of the world still doesn't realize the AU now has this leverage, which means, for now, the power shift is silent, strategic, and completely African.
Wow, that is powerful. That means that the 7 seas that we as black men and black people controlled millennia ago, not millennia literally, but a long time ago, will be back in our hands again. The 7 seas will be in our hands again. Here, that's black man speaking, black man talking, black man walking. And there's nothing that you can do about it, white boy. So, the next one, Africa just took control of the global oil prices. OPEC replaced by the AU Energy Council. Hey, this is a big. Let's get it started.
Breaking. Africa just took control of global oil prices. OPEC replaced by AU Energy Council. By Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News, SABN, Tisu Vanuvacho. When Africa flexes, the world's fuel burns differently. Part 1. The spark in Vienna. It began in the grand conference halls of Vienna, Austria, where OPEC ministers were meeting under chandeliers older than most African republics. The agenda: how to stabilize global oil prices in the face of shortages and volatile markets. But according to insiders, African delegates from Nigeria, Angola, Algeria, and Libya had already agreed on one thing before even boarding their flights. No more playing second fiddle. Colonel Nia Kentek, a former AU energy security officer turned confidential insider, told SABN that a dramatic walkout was planned weeks in advance. They came to dictate production cuts to Africa, she explained. But Africa came to Vienna to dictate history. Part 2. The walkout. The breaking point came when a Gulf minister suggested that Africa's oil production should be temporarily adjusted downward to stabilize prices, while Middle Eastern producers maintained output. That was the moment Nigeria's energy minister reportedly stood, slammed a dossier on the table, and walked out. One by one, the African delegations followed. Shadow Unit Zulu, our ever-present watchers of backroom deals, intercepted memos that OPEC leaders scrambled to write afterward. One memo allegedly read, "If Africa acts as one bloc, OPEC is finished." Part 3. The birth of the AU Energy Council. Within 48 hours of that walkout, the One Africa Parliament in Addis Ababa convened a special session. The outcome was historic: the creation of the AU Energy Council, AUEC, the first body in history to unite Africa's oil and gas producers under one voice. Headquarters, Abuja, Nigeria, chosen for its massive production and symbolic weight. Council structure: a rotating presidency every 3 years, shared between top oil producers. Currency: all transactions denominated in Afro-gold, bypassing the US dollar. Security: an AU Energy Security Task Force to patrol shipping routes and protect pipelines. The economist of Addis, our trusted whisperer in financial circles, called it OPEC's replacement and the West's nightmare. Part 4. Why Africa holds the cards. Here's the hard truth. Without Africa, the global oil system collapses. Nigeria is Africa's largest oil producer, pumping over 1.5 million barrels per day. Libya holds the largest proven oil reserves on the continent, over 48 billion barrels. Algeria is a top supplier of natural gas to Europe, especially after Russia's war strained supply. Angola has become a crucial partner for both China and India's growing energy needs. Add to that rising players like Mozambique, Tanzania, and Ghana with massive gas reserves. Suddenly, Africa isn't a sideshow, it's the main act. Part 5. The new rules of the game. The AU Energy Council has already announced its first 5 principles. 1. Oil from Africa will no longer be sold below fair market value. 2. Payment in Afro-gold only, no exceptions. 3. African refineries will be prioritized over foreign refineries. 4. New contracts must include local development clauses, schools, roads, and technology transfer. 5. Any foreign military presence near African oil facilities must receive AUEC approval. General Umoja, the retired commander turned AU defense consultant, says this last clause is the game changer. For decades, Western bases sat quietly near our resources. Now, every barrel is guarded by the will of Africa itself. Part 6. The market shock. Global oil markets reacted instantly. Within hours of the AUEC announcement, Brent crude prices spiked 15%. Traders in London and New York were in chaos. Western energy firms scrambled to call their African partners, but insiders say calls went unanswered. Instead, Beijing and New Delhi reportedly secured first deals under the new Afro-Gold framework. The West was frozen out. Hashtag Part 7, the West's Panic. Washington released a carefully worded statement urging dialogue and cooperation. But leaked internal memos obtained by Shadow Unit Zulu reveal the real mood: panic. One White House briefing note allegedly read, "The AU Energy Council undermines decades of leverage. Immediate countermeasures required." Paris, still reliant on Algerian and Nigerian energy, warned of destabilization. London hinted at sanctions. But behind the threats was fear. Fear that Africa had finally put its hand on the global steering wheel. Part 8. The Global South's Cheers. In contrast, Global South nations erupted in celebration. Brazil's energy minister called the AUEC the dawn of fair trade. India's newspapers ran headlines declaring Africa reshapes oil. Even Indonesia hinted at joining the alliance as an observer. The Economist of Addis says this is the beginning of a new multipolar world. For the first time, the South isn't begging the North for oil prices. The South is setting them. Part 9. Security implications. To enforce the new rules, the AU Energy Council unveiled Operation Black Shield, a combined task force of naval patrols, cyber units, and intelligence teams. Colonel Nia Kente says its mandate is simple: stop oil theft, monitor tanker traffic, and ensure Africa's terms are respected. Western navies in the Gulf of Guinea and Indian Ocean suddenly find themselves outnumbered by African coordinated patrols. It's a quiet but clear message. The days of siphoning off Africa's wealth are over. Part 10. A united rich Africa in motion. For ordinary Africans, the move has become a dream come true. Social media platforms across the continent are filled with artwork of golden oil rigs, Afro-Gold coins, and united African leaders signing the new charter. In Lagos, a taxi driver told local radio, "At last, our oil will build roads in Nigeria, not just profits in London." In Nairobi, university students marched with banners reading, "OPEC is dead, long live AUEC." In Johannesburg, billboards lit up with the Afro-Gold symbol beside the words, "Africa decides." Part 11. The long-term vision. Insiders say the AU Energy Council is only the first step. Plans are already in motion to expand it into the AU Resources Council, bringing in African producers of cobalt, lithium, gold, and diamonds. Imagine that. One African body controlling not just oil, but the rare minerals driving the global tech economy. As Mama Pan Africa reportedly told Parliament, they divided our wealth for centuries. Today, we divide nothing. We share it as one. Part 12. What comes next? The next 90 days will determine everything. The AUEC must finalize its charter, sign contracts, and resist Western pressure. Already, diplomatic whispers suggest Washington and Brussels may try to bribe individual African leaders to defect. But Colonel Nia Kente says the AU is prepared. For every weak link, there are 10 strong ones. The chain of Africa's unity will hold. Closing words. This isn't just about oil. It's about Africa finally choosing itself. For centuries, the continent supplied the world's energy and wealth, but never controlled the price. That era has ended. The AU Energy Council is the death of OPEC as we know it. It is the rise of Africa as a price setter, not a price taker. And it is the spark that could ignite a completely new global economy. Tisu Banhubacho. Africa doesn't just pump oil anymore. Africa pumps destiny.
Wow. Soon, and I do mean very, very, very soon, you will see nothing but good things coming out of Africa. Medically, scientifically, mathematically, you name it. That we are the gods of those disciplines. Period. And to be able to determine your destiny because you have the power to do so speaks in volume as to and in what direction Africa will go, and her children as well in the diaspora, and all the future black folks who will be born will have a solid foundation to stand on and to have the power to wield that power in any direction that it chooses, as long as it is good. That is the only requirement that our ancestors have. And to be able to receive the blessing of our ancestors, we must do the right thing. So let's keep it moving. Oop. I don't believe I did that. Well, I did it. Now we can't see that one. But that one dealt with the fact of our power that we have. And it's so critical to understand that power and how to utilize it to the best of our ability and to the future children of our great mother continent and our diaspora. Let's keep it moving. All ordained by an unquestionable path.
Questionable past. The story is familiar. Civilizations torch past from one hand to another. A relay race of empires played out under the Mediterranean sun and across the European plains. It is a story whose ink seems to have dried centuries ago, a manuscript locked away in a vault of collective consensus. We believe the authors were long dead. They were complete. We were wrong. History is written by the victors, until now. A revolutionary African leader has just dropped a bombshell statement that threatens to shatter the very foundations of Western and Middle Eastern history, challenging everything you thought you knew about the ancient Israelites. From the heart of a continent so often relegated to the footnotes of this grand narrative, a voice has risen, not as a whisper of protest, but as a tectonic roar. Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, a figure forged in the crucible of modern African struggle, has done more than challenge a border or a trade agreement. He has challenged the very soul of our shared story, the bedrock of identity for millions. With a calm and searing clarity, he has supposedly declared that the true original children of Israel, the authors of the Psalms and the subjects of the Exodus, were not the people we see today, but were in fact Black Africans. This is not a mere historical debate. It is a metaphysical earthquake. It is a claim so profound, so utterly disruptive, that it seeks to redraw the maps of our souls, to reroute the rivers of our heritage, and to force us all to stare into the abyss of a question we never thought to ask. What if the story of us was never ours to begin with? Masking the true Israelites. Traoré's earth-shattering ancestral proclamation. The proclamation, in its stark audacity, seeks to unmask what it frames as the greatest heist of identity in human history. To even whisper Traoré's words is to feel the ground shift beneath one's feet. The original Israelites were Black. This is not a suggestion floated in the quiet halls of revisionist academia. This is presented as a declaration of truth from a head of state, an act of sovereign speech aimed at the heart of our civilizational narrative. The sheer weight of this statement transcends mere politics. It is an act of philosophical alchemy. When a national leader, a wielder of tangible state power, decides to redefine the origins of an ancient people, he does more than offer an alternative history. He attempts to resculpt the very marble of millennia. He forces a schism between faith and flesh, suggesting that while the spiritual covenant of Abraham may have been adopted by many, the original bloodline, the physical testament of that covenant, flowed through different veins. The statement cleaves identity into two parts, the spiritual legacy and the genetic legacy. It posits that the identity of the chosen people was stolen, their legacy whitewashed, and their true descendants scattered, first by ancient conquests and later by the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. Their amnesia sealed by the loss of their language, their land, and their name. This is a recalibration of origins, an intellectual and spiritual repatriation process that seeks to reclaim not land, but the very source code of a people.
The Burnout Advanced tool that can take your business to the next level. If you're an experienced graphic designer, you're probably tired of the constant creative.
This earth-shattering proclamation does not exist in a vacuum. It stands on the shoulders of a powerful and painful argument that the history we have been taught is a deliberate fabrication, a carefully curated narrative designed to legitimize European dominance and erase the contributions and centrality of Africa. Traoré's declaration becomes the keystone in this arch of counterhistory. It argues that the Sahara was not a barrier but a bridge, that the ancient civilizations of Egypt, of Kush, of Aksum, were not isolated curiosities but part of a contiguous cultural and ethnic tapestry that stretched north into the Levant. The argument is that this world was colored black and brown, and its stories, its religions, and its peoples were African. The alleged cover-up, then, was an act of profound intellectual violence. It was the slow, methodical work of Roman historians, of medieval European cartographers, of Enlightenment race theorists, and of colonial administrators who, together, drained the color from the ancient world. They are accused of performing a historical alchemy in reverse, turning the gold of African civilization into the lead of primitive obscurity. They chiseled away at the noses of sphinxes and statues, not just with hammers, but with the more insidious tools of translation and interpretation, rendering Hebrew names into European phonetics, and painting prophets and patriarchs with pale skin and flowing fair hair in the hallowed art of cathedrals. The claim is that this wasn't just an error of ignorance, but a conspiracy of intent, a psychological operation spanning centuries to sever Europe from its own inconvenient African antecedents and to deny black people their rightful place at the very center of the Abrahamic world. To make such a seismic claim, a leader like Traoré, or the intellectual tradition he represents, would not rely on mere assertion. They would point to a trail of breadcrumbs, a body of evidence they believe has been willfully ignored by the mainstream. This evidence, they would argue, is not hidden, only misinterpreted. They might point to the controversial descriptions in the Bible itself, the description of King Solomon as black and comely in the Song of Songs, or Moses' marriage to an Ethiopian, Cushite woman, an act that drew the ire of his own siblings. They would turn our attention to the historical accounts of Roman writers like Tacitus, who described the Jews of his time as having an Ethiopian origin. They would exhume the work of early black scholars who argued this very point over a century ago, their voices silenced and dismissed by the academic establishment. The argument would weave through linguistics, suggesting that ancient Hebrew shares a deeper structural kinship with certain Afro-Asiatic languages than is commonly acknowledged. They would point to the undeniable existence of ancient African Jewish communities like the Beta Israel of Ethiopia, presenting them not as a curious offshoot of Judaism, but as a remnant of the original, a living fossil from a time before the erasure. And finally, they would invoke the power of oral tradition, the griot storytellers of West Africa, who for centuries have passed down epic poems and histories, some of which are said to contain narratives of a great people who migrated from the East, a people of a sacred book, whose story mirrors that of the lost tribes of Israel. For Traoré and his camp, this is not speculation. It is the piecing together of a shattered mirror, each fragment reflecting a truth that the established order has fought desperately to keep hidden. A geopolitical chess move, why Traoré's ancestry claim is a direct assault on global power structures. While the declaration reverberates with the power of history and metaphysics, it is in the cold light of day a masterstroke of geopolitical warfare. To view Traoré's claims solely through a historical lens is to miss the flashing blade of its contemporary purpose. This is not a history lesson. It is a calculated assault on the very architecture of global power. In the unforgiving arena of international relations, a nation's legitimacy is its lifeblood, and for many nations, that legitimacy is drawn from the deep well of historical narrative. The modern state of Israel, for instance, anchors its right to exist not only in international law, but in an unbroken 3,000-year-old historical and spiritual claim to the land. Traoré's statement is a direct ontological attack on that claim. It doesn't just question a border, it questions the very premise of the return. By asserting that the original bloodline resides elsewhere, that the true inheritors were scattered across Africa and the Americas, the Declaration attempts to sever the metaphysical root of the modern state. It reframes the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, suggesting that both sides may be fighting over a land to which a third, forgotten party holds the most ancient claim of all. It is an act of profound disruption, a philosophical bomb thrown into the most volatile region on earth, designed to destabilize, not with armies, but with an idea. It is a challenge that says your foundational myth, the very premise of your nationhood, is built on a case of stolen identity. This move is the apotheosis of anti-imperialist strategy. For centuries, the empires of the West conquered not just with guns and steel, but with a more potent weapon, the narrative of superiority. They imposed their languages, their religions, and their version of history, convincing the colonized that their own past was one of darkness and savagery. Traoré's declaration is an act of turning this weapon back on its creators. He is not merely rejecting the colonial narrative. He is hijacking it. He is taking the most sacred story of the Western world, the story of the Israelites, the foundation of Judaism and Christianity, and claiming it as African.
What if I told you that teenagers are building businesses with AI, while the only AI you know is chat?
African property. It is the ultimate act of cultural expropriation. If the foundational people of the West's dominant religions are, in fact, black, then the entire edifice of racial and cultural superiority that justified colonialism collapses into absurdity. It is a move that says, you did not bring us enlightenment. You conquered us and made us forget our own. It is an attempt to decolonize the mind on a global scale, to recenter the world away from Rome, London, and Washington, and back towards the Nile, the Niger, and the Great Rift Valley. It is a declaration of intellectual independence so profound that it makes the political independence won decades ago seem like a mere prelude. This is the real fight, the war for the soul, fought on the battlefield of history itself. Beyond its function as a weapon, the Declaration serves as a powerful unifying call, a spiritual adhesive intended to bind a scattered and fragmented people. It is a broadcast on a frequency that aims to reach every corner of the African diaspora. For centuries, the identity of Black people in the Americas and across the world has been defined by a rupture, a wound, the Middle Passage. Their history, they were taught, began with enslavement. Traoré's proclamation offers a new genesis. It replaces the narrative of the slave ship with the narrative of the Ark of the Covenant. It tells the descendants of the enslaved that they are not merely the children of survivors, but the children of kings, prophets, and patriarchs. This is a new flag, a banner woven not from shared suffering, but from a shared, majestic, and divine origin. It is an attempt to forge a pan-African, pan-diasporic alliance, not on the basis of political ideology, but on the unshakable foundation of sacred blood. It is a call that seeks to resonate in the churches of Harlem, the favelas of Brazil, the council estates of London, and the townships of South Africa, uniting them in a common, reclaimed heritage that predates and transcends the scars of colonialism and slavery. It offers a new unified field theory of Black identity. Claiming a stolen identity, Traoré's declaration as a rallying cry for a global Black awakening. This reclamation is, at its core, a revolution of the soul. To understand its power, one must inhabit, for a moment, the psychological space of a people whose history has been systematically erased. To be told your story begins with chains is to internalize a narrative of victimhood. It is to see your past as a void, a darkness from which you were violently wrenched. But to be told that your story begins on a throne in Jerusalem, with a lyre in the hands of David and the wisdom of Solomon on your lips, that is a transformation of consciousness. It is a Copernican shift of the self. The Declaration acts as a therapeutic intervention for the intergenerational trauma that has afflicted the diaspora for 400 years. It replaces the phantom limb of a lost heritage with the sudden, shocking sensation of a restored one. The psychic weight of inferiority, so brutally imposed by centuries of racist pseudoscience and cultural domination, is instantly lifted and replaced with the soaring pride of a chosen lineage. It reframes suffering not as a mark of subjugation, but as the trials of a people in exile, the fulfillment of prophecies of being scattered to the four corners of the earth. It gives meaning to the pain, purpose to the struggle. This profound psychological shift alters the very chemistry of identity. For generations, Black identity has often been forged in opposition, a reaction against slavery, against Jim Crow, against colonialism, against systemic racism. It is an identity of resistance, powerful and necessary, but eternally tethered to the reality of an oppressor. Traoré's declaration offers a new paradigm, an identity of precedence. It is a claim to an origin that predates the oppressor, a history that is whole and magnificent on its own terms, without reference to any other. It allows for a sense of self that is not defined by a struggle against, but by an inheritance of. This changes everything. It reframes artistic expression, political aspiration, and spiritual practice. The blues might be heard not just as the cry of the plantation, but as the echo of a Levitical psalm. The call for justice is no longer just a plea for equality, but a demand for the restoration of a divine birthright. It is an infusion of pride so potent it can recalibrate the spirit, turning the lead of historical trauma into the gold of a sacred past. The declaration, therefore, becomes a profound call to return. This homecoming is not necessarily a literal physical migration, though for some it might be. It is more powerfully a symbolic and spiritual recentering. It is a call for the diaspora to return to Africa, not as a continent of distant and forgotten roots, but as the living heart of their own sacred story. It is an invitation to shift one's mental and spiritual geography, to see Africa as the source, the East, the direction of prayer and reverence. It asks the Black person in the Americas or Europe to look towards Africa and see not just a place of historical suffering or exotic beauty, but to see Zion. It's a call to relearn, to re-examine texts, to listen to new voices, and to reconnect with a spiritual and cultural lineage that was violently severed. It is an invitation to come home to oneself, to an identity that
Scientists at Harvard just witnessed something extraordinary. During a routine study of sound frequencies, they discovered a song that does something unprecedented. It literally switches on
that is no longer fragmented or borrowed, but is whole, ancient, and undeniably royal. It is a promise that the scattering was not the end of the story, but merely a chapter before the great reunion. Igniting a global firestorm, the vicious backlash and desperate denials aimed at silencing Traoré. An idea so incendiary, so utterly contrary to the established order, could not be met with silence. Its arrival on the world stage would inevitably ignite a global firestorm, a furious and desperate campaign to extinguish it. The first line of defense would be the academic and religious establishments, the twin guardians of the official narrative. From the ivory towers of universities and the pulpits of cathedrals and synagogues, a wave of condemnation would thunder forth. Historians, archaeologists, geneticists, and theologians would unite in a rare consensus, deploying their considerable intellectual arsenal to dismantle the claim. They would present a mountain of evidence, archaeological findings, textual analyses of the Bible in its original languages, DNA studies of modern Jewish populations, all designed to demonstrate the historical absurdity of Traoré's position. Their articles would fill the pages of scholarly journals. Their voices would dominate television panels, and their books would be rushed to publication. This would not be a gentle disagreement. It would be a furious intellectual crusade, a defense not just of facts, but of the very integrity of their disciplines and the sanctity of their traditions. They would label it a dangerous mythology, a historical hijacking that dishonors both Black history and Jewish history. The second front of this war would be waged in the media. The global information machine, with its immense power to shape perception, would whir to life. The narrative would be swift and brutal. Traoré would be framed not as a revolutionary thinker, but as a delusional dictator, a purveyor of fake news and conspiracy theories. He would be painted as a cynical opportunist, using a fantastical claim to distract from domestic problems or to rally a radical base. His image would be plastered alongside those of other controversial leaders, his words stripped of their philosophical context and presented as the ravings of an unstable mind. News anchors would speak in grave tones about the dangers of historical revisionism, while op-eds would decry the rise of ethno-nationalist myths. It would be a campaign of character assassination, a coordinated effort to disqualify the claimant in order to nullify the claim. The goal would not be to engage with the argument, but to ridicule it into oblivion, ensuring that it is never taken seriously in the respectable chambers of global discourse. When intellectual and reputational attacks fail to silence such a disruptive idea, the final, most brutal weapons are brought to bear: political and economic pressure. In the quiet, wood-paneled rooms of global power, a different kind of war would be planned. Diplomatic channels would run cold. Ambassadors might be recalled for consultations. Burkina Faso would find itself increasingly isolated on the world stage. Then would come the economic strangulation. Foreign aid packages, upon which many African nations depend, would be quietly reviewed and delayed. Favorable trade agreements would be threatened. International loans from institutions like the IMF and World Bank would suddenly be contingent on new, impossible-to-meet conditions. Covert funding might flow to political opposition within Burkina Faso, fostering dissent and instability. This is the cold, hard reality of global power. It is a system designed to punish and contain rogue ideas that threaten its foundational narratives. The message sent to Traoré and to any other leader who might dare to follow his example would be clear and unambiguous. Renounce this heresy, or we will turn your nation into a pariah and ensure your political demise. Uncorked Genie, why Traoré's declaration has unleashed a historical debate that can never be contained. Yet, the gatekeepers of the old order would find themselves facing a fundamental truth. You cannot kill an idea with a sword, and you cannot unspeak words that have been heard by millions. Traoré's declaration is a genie that, once uncorked, can never be forced back into its bottle. Even if the academic world proves it false with a mountain of data, even if the media ridicules it and politicians condemn it, the act of its utterance has already done its irreversible work. It has sown a seed of profound doubt in the soil of the collective consciousness. It has cracked the polished mirror of historical certainty. For generations, the official story of the Israelites was presented as an unassailable fact. Now it is merely one version of a story that is suddenly, shockingly up for debate. The declaration forces everyone who hears it, even its most ardent opponents, to ask a terrifying question. Why was I so certain of the old story? On what authority did I believe it? The very existence of a powerful alternative, voiced by a head of state, transforms historical fact into historical contention. The genie of doubt is out, and it will haunt the halls of...
What's up, guys? Muddy Water Mafia back. Look who I got with me.
...the power and academia forever. Furthermore, Traoré's audacious claim acts as a powerful catalyst, empowering 1,000 other voices that have long been relegated to the fringe. History is filled with suppressed narratives, heretical theories, and marginalized perspectives that were dismissed as fanciful or insane by the mainstream. Before, these were isolated whispers in the dark. Now they have an ally, a precedent set on the world stage. If a story as central as that of the Israelites can be challenged, then what other historical truths are vulnerable? The declaration creates a space, a crack in the dam of orthodoxy through which other waters can now flow. Theories about ancient African civilizations, about pre-Columbian contact between continents, about the hidden histories of indigenous peoples, all are given a new indirect legitimacy. Traoré's move provides a shield for other revisionists, allowing what was once dismissed as conspiracy to be re-examined as counter-narrative. He has not just offered one new story, he has implicitly validated the act of questioning all old stories. Ultimately, the long-term legacy of this declaration will be debated for centuries. Will future historians look back on this moment as an act of profound political madness, a footnote in the bizarre annals of the 21st century? Or will they see it as the first tremor of a seismic revolution, the moment when the historical narrative of the world began to tilt on its axis? Was this a cynical ploy for power, or was it an act of genuine world-altering revelation? The answer may be irrelevant. The true legacy is not in whether the claim is eventually proven true or false. The legacy lies in the permanent scar it leaves on the face of certainty. It represents the moment a voice from the supposed periphery of the world stood up and claimed ownership of the center. It is a testament to the enduring power of an idea to challenge empires, to redefine identity, and to force humanity to confront the uncomfortable possibility that our most cherished truths are nothing more than beautifully told stories. The question has been asked, the silence has been broken, and the world will never be quite the same.
All right. And that's the reason why I say when you know the past, you can understand the present and predict the future. It really is simple. But people like, for whatever reason, making it more complicated than what it is. And that I do hate, and that is what I continue to fight against. You must know your history. All right, so we're back on the grind, and we're going to move forward with this one, and we'll be right back.
Breaking. Africa expands flight ban to cargo. Western supply chains in crisis. Supreme Africa breaking news. Tisu Van Hubacha. The smell of panic is in the air, and it's not coming from Africa this time. No, my brothers and sisters, it's coming from Western boardrooms, shipping offices, and even a few luxury yacht decks where CEOs are frantically refreshing their trade dashboards. Part 1. The announcement nobody saw coming. It started like a quiet tremor before the earthquake. Weeks ago, the One Africa government made headlines by restricting passenger flights from certain Western countries, citing security protocol reviews. It was disruptive, yes, but the West assumed cargo routes, the arteries of their global trade, were safe. Well, not anymore. According to an insider leak from Protocol Black, the anonymous AU meeting technician who somehow hears everything, the Continental Security Council has now extended the ban to cargo flights. Not just random delays, a full-scale halt on specific Western carriers until further notice. And this isn't just about trade disagreements. Oh no. Protocol Black says the confidential AU memos describe the move as a Level 4 continental security control, a classification reserved for the highest threats to African sovereignty. Part 2, the trigger. What Africa found in the boxes. Our sources claim the escalation was triggered by a confidential AU audit on diplomatic and commercial cargo arriving from Western countries. Inside those shipments, not just food, medicine, or electronics. The inspection teams reportedly found unlisted tech equipment, the kind you don't buy at Best Buy. General Umoja, retired peacekeeping commander and now a key AU security advisor, told our sources the items looked suspiciously like surveillance devices, possibly intended for embedding into African communications infrastructure. This wasn't charity cargo, Umoja reportedly said in a closed security briefing. This was infiltration wrapped in bubble wrap. Part 3. How the ban works and why it hurts. The ban is surgical. It doesn't block all cargo flights, only those operated by targeted Western carriers until they pass AU security recertification. Key hubs enforcing the new policy include Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Nairobi, Kenya, O.R. Tambo International Airport, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Let this soft mineral melt in your mouth to rebuild your gums and teeth and never need a dentist again.
Kotoka International Airport, Accra, Ghana. Bole International Airport, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Cargo arriving on flagged carriers is either denied landing rights or held indefinitely for inspection. In some cases, shipments have already been diverted mid-air to neutral hubs in the Middle East for third-party clearance. The economist of Addis, our economic insider, says the move hits harder than people realize. The EU depends on African cobalt, cocoa, and coffee. The U.S. needs our rare minerals for electric cars and electronics. Even their pharmaceutical industry sources key raw materials from here. This ban isn't a jab, it's a chokehold. Part 4. The immediate fallout. Western retailers in panic fashion. Giants in Paris and Milan have reportedly warned shareholders about African-origin raw material shortages. That's designer speak for, we can't make your luxury leather bags without African hides. Tech companies on alert. Silicon Valley supply chain managers are scrambling to secure cobalt and lithium from alternative suppliers. But as the Economist of Addis points out, there is no real alternative to Africa's mineral wealth without paying triple the price. Food prices spiking in London. Traders at the coffee exchange are already pushing up futures prices as Ethiopian and Ugandan shipments stall at African airports. The price of your morning latte just became part of global politics. Part 5, the West's response. In Brussels, the EU's Emergency Trade Committee has reportedly convened 3 times in 24 hours. The US Trade Department is threatening reciprocal measures, which, given their track record, might mean new tariffs or freezing African assets abroad. Western media is painting the move as the new supply chain Cold War. But in Addis Ababa, AU diplomats are calm. We didn't start this, one official allegedly told Protocol Black during a break in the security summit. We're just closing the door they've been sneaking through. Part 6. The internal African debate. The ban is not without controversy inside Africa. While security hawks like General Umoja applaud the move, trade ministers from some nations worry about lost revenue from air freight fees. Yet, according to Protocol Black, the One Africa government has a counterplan, rerouting essential exports through AU-approved African carriers and expanding Africa's own cargo fleet under the AfriCargo banner. They want to prove to the world, and to Africans, that we don't need Western planes to deliver African goods, he says. The strategic chess move. The Economist of Addis believes this is more than a security reaction. It's a negotiation tactic. By tightening control over the movement of goods, Africa gains bargaining power in every upcoming trade deal. If they want our minerals, they play by our rules, no exceptions. General Umoja goes further. This is not just about minerals or cocoa. This is about control of the skies. Whoever controls the air corridors controls the flow of everything, from food to technology to money. Part 8. The domino effect. Already, whispers are emerging that some Asian and Middle Eastern cargo carriers are quietly negotiating exclusive rights to replace the banned Western airlines. If true, the West could soon find itself locked out of not just passenger markets, but also Africa's most lucrative cargo routes. The Economist of Addis predicts this will reshape global trade lanes within a year. Western supply chains were built on the assumption that Africa was just a pit stop. Now it's the main gate, and the gatekeepers have changed the locks. Part 9. The street-level reaction in Africa. In Johannesburg, a taxi driver laughed when asked about the ban. So they can't just fly in their spy boxes anymore? Good. Let them use DHL like the rest of us. In Lagos, traders at Balogun Market are split. Some fear price hikes on imported goods, while others say it's a small price for national dignity. We've been importing too much nonsense anyway, says one vendor selling locally made clothing. Part 10. What happens next? Insiders say the ban is not permanent, but it will not be lifted until the AU's new Continental Cargo Security Protocol is fully implemented. That could take months. In the meantime, expect rising prices in Western supermarkets for African-origin products. Increased lobbying in Washington and Brussels to soften Africa's stance. A sudden rise in African-owned cargo airline stocks. Protocol Black says another AU meeting is scheduled in 3 weeks to review the impact and possibly expand the ban to sea freight containers if similar security breaches are found in maritime shipments. If that happens, as the Economist of Addis warns, this won't just be a crisis, it will be a reordering of the global economy. Tisu Vanhu Bacho. The world is learning that Africa is not just a resource storehouse, it's a power center. And when that power decides to close its doors, even for a moment, the world notices and trembles.
Unbridled power, politics, economic, spiritual, and physical. When you have control over those four things, it's over and done with. And you never let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Beautifully done, Africa, Mother Africa. So now we're going to move on. We're going to cover what Neil deGrasse is saying, that Africa will run the world and beat USA. Just that simple. Hold on. So we'll be right back.
An amazing conversation. There's only one more question I have for you. And it's about, do you, Neil, believe that I asked
I don't believe. It's not a belief thing. I don't. It's not.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, Neil.
Fine.
I'm still gonna do it because that's what I ask a lot of my guests. It's important.
Okay, go.
It's our African. This is gonna be mostly for an African audience, right?
Fine.
So, do you believe that Africans can become more prosperous in this century?
Oh, but definitely. When I look over the history of, before 1910, the United States was kind of a backwoods farmland country. We had a couple of big cities, but they were kind of smelly and dirty, and they were not very sophisticated, not like London or Paris, for example. And the country was built within a century to become a leader in the world in science and technology, because there was values placed on research and engineering and math and STEM fields. Okay, so and that happened within a century. Before then, Europe basically led the world. All right, they embraced science and technology early. All right, the Industrial Revolution hit them first, and that fueled their power over the rest of the world. Okay, a lot of it was work towards health and security and wealth, but the rest was like hegemony. Okay, that's how they chose to use their power of influence and wealth. You go back 1,000 years, the golden age of Islam out of Baghdad. Major advances in science and engineering, astronomy and medicine. 2/3 of all, and navigation. 2/3 of all stars in the night sky that have names have Arabic names, traceable from that period. You go back thousands of years before that, you have Egypt as one of the greatest cultures civilizations has ever seen. The pyramids were the tallest structures, stable structures, to exist in this world until the Eiffel Tower. Okay? So, all I'm declaring here is no one country, no one region has eternal rights to leading the world. It's a combination of how enlightened is your leadership, what are the motivations for doing so, and they can easily happen within a century. Africa, with the resources that are built in just to the land and the people and the diversity, I don't see why Africa wouldn't lead the world for millennia to come. And so, yeah. And with the United States just looking from the sidelines. That's my read of history tells me nothing in principle will prevent that. Look what China did. It wasn't many decades ago before the stereotype of the Chinese peasant working in the field, that was kind of true. Okay? China decided we're going to redouble our interest in science and technology and engineering and math, and they sent their people abroad to get educated. Initially, they would stay. Then they came back. Now they educate their own people. Okay? They don't have to learn their science and engineering in other countries. They do it in-house, in the country. So China says we're going to put a person in orbit, bada bing. They put a person in orbit. We're going to build a space station, bada bing. We're going to put people on the moon. That spooked us. We haven't been on the moon in 50 years. And all of a sudden, hey, let's put people on the moon. It's kind of the right time. Well, why is it? Well, China is doing it. All right? So we're seeing a shift in science and technology to China. And so I don't see why things can't shift to Africa.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
It's overdue. Thank you so much. Neil, is there anything that you wanted to bring up that we didn't get to bring up?
Yeah, just a simple thing. A lot of what I shared with you are derived from thinking that went into the Starry Messenger Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization, or what I shared with you in that book. And so in there, it's fully footnoted, and there's precision in the communication, even if especially when we were talking about Republicans and Democrats, it's numerically accurate in those, how many states out of 10 were red or voted blue, who went one way or another, which presidents had which budgets. It's all in there. So I invite those who never felt comfortable assigning someone else's political platform to their own views. The chapter in that book called Conflict and Resolution is all about how to apply your own rational thinking to information so that you can decide you are your own individual.
Yes.
Which we all are, ultimately.
Ultimately. No, this has been really fun, Neil. I knew I could count on you to, just take things back from a more fair view of looking at things. It doesn't matter where people land in terms of, in the end, what they perceive to be. I think at the end of the day, there's just a process that needs to be had. So
excellent, and thank you for noting that. And like I said, what we have seen in the last 300 years is that science and technology brings nations out of poverty. So it's a matter of bringing more science and more technology to Africa, even though it's hugely agricultural, of course. Even agriculture benefits from applications of science and technology in ways that would not have otherwise been possible. So, yeah.
Very true. Well, we're going to have you come to Africa. You are not without knowing that you have a huge fan base over there. So hopefully, with all of these young people, they need to see you for real at some point. So
yeah, half the country's young. I'm all in. Okay. half the continent.
Yeah. So no, it will be my greatest pleasure to work something out. So let's make it a goal.
All right, keep me on your list.
Will do. Well, Neil, it's been a pleasure.
So now you heard it. I mean, there's no ands, ifs, or buts about Africa's greatness now, in the past, and forever in the future. We're just destined to dominate. So we're going to keep on moving. We don't have that much to go. Let me get rid of this one. And so let's keep it moving.
Government just left the United Nations, launches new global alliance.
Africa, the new UN.
When Africa moves, the world shakes. Part 1, the calm before the storm. 2 days ago, we told you about the One Africa Army delegation that landed in New York. Remember that top secret flight carrying uniformed generals, economic advisors, and a select team of AU diplomats who walked into UN headquarters like they owned the place. The mission back then was straightforward, or so we thought. Negotiate Africa's entry into the United Nations Security Council as a single permanent member. No more 55 small voices begging to be heard. One seat, one vote, one Africa. But something shifted. Our insiders say by the time that delegation left New York, the tone had changed from diplomatic smiles to silent fury. The West wasn't just resisting Africa's rise. They were plotting to delay it another decade. Part 2, inside the closed-door showdown. This morning at 6:45 CTAT, the One Africa Parliament convened an emergency session in Addis Ababa. No live streams, no press. The doors were shut, the windows sealed, and armed guards stood outside. Chairman Shadow, our ghost inside those marble walls, sent us encrypted notes. His first message was just 5 words. Open quote, they've decided to walk away. Close quote. According to his account, the debate began with AU Commission Chair Mahmoud Ali Yusuf reading a confidential UN memo. The memo reportedly detailed procedural concerns about allowing Africa to join the Security Council as a single entity. Translation? Stall tactics. Mama Pan Africa, The firebrand diplomat from the AU's Department of Political Affairs stood up and reportedly said, open quote, "The UN needs Africa more than Africa needs the UN." Close quote. The room erupted in applause. Part 3. The vote that changed history. The decision was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. Out of 55 national delegations, 49 voted in favor of immediately exiting the United Nations. The holdouts? A handful of leaders still clinging to old bilateral aid agreements. The motion's language was simple. Withdraw from the UN General Assembly within 90 days. Cease participation in all UN-funded programs except humanitarian aid, pending review. Redirect Africa's diplomatic resources to a new global alliance under African leadership. Part 4. Birth of the Global South Unity Alliance, GSUA. Sources tell us the name is provisional, but the vision is crystal clear. The Global South Unity Alliance would be an economic, political, and security coalition led by the African Union, BRICS members, and selected non-aligned nations. Proposed founding members: African Union bloc, 55 states, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, BRICS, Indonesia, Mexico, Venezuela, Iran, and possibly Saudi Arabia. Headquarters split between Addis Ababa and Johannesburg with an annual rotating presidency. Primary goals: end resource exploitation through collective bargaining. Establish AfroGold as a common settlement currency. Create a peacekeeping force immune to Western vetoes. Build an independent internet and satellite navigation network. Part 5. The West's reaction. Within hours of the leak, Western capitals went into overdrive. Washington issued a statement calling Africa's exit a regrettable move with destabilizing potential. Paris warned of serious consequences for African trade access to European markets. But here's what our sources inside the French Foreign Ministry told us. Open quote, "They are terrified. This is a diplomatic earthquake." Close quote. One U.S. diplomat allegedly said in private, open quote, "If Africa pulls out, the UN loses a third of its moral legitimacy overnight." Close quote. What triggered the final straw? Multiple insiders confirmed that the breaking point came during a dinner in New York between African delegates and a group of Western ambassadors. One European official allegedly joked that Africa should prove itself before expecting a Security Council seat. That remark, according to Chairman Shadow, was met with cold silence and quiet fury. The next morning, the African delegation drafted a withdrawal motion on the flight back to Addis. Part 7. The economic angle. The GSUA would not just be a political club, it would be an economic weapon. Under the proposed charter, member nations would trade with each other using AfroGold, bypassing the US dollar. The alliance would also establish a Global South Development Bank, headquartered in Johannesburg, funded by contributions from all members, including oil-rich nations in the Middle East. The idea is simple. If the West wants African resources, they pay Africa's price, not the market price set in London or New York. Part 8. Military implications. General Umoja, the retired peacekeeping commander now advising the AU on security matters, has reportedly been tasked with drafting the GSUA's defense framework. His concept: merge African Union standby forces with BRICS military coordination to create a Global South defense pact. That means, in theory, if one member is attacked, all respond. For the first time since the Cold War, the West could face a truly unified non-Western military bloc. Part 9. Symbolism of the move. Leaving the UN is not just bureaucracy, it's symbolism. For decades, the UN has been sold as the world's table for peace and equality, but in practice, 5 nations hold the power to veto the rest of the planet. Africa has had to beg for crumbs of influence, even while holding the majority of the world's rare earth minerals, gold, and fresh water. This move says, we are done begging. Part 10. What happens next? The withdrawal clock is ticking. Once the formal letter hits the UN Secretary General's desk, the countdown begins. In the next 90 days, African embassies in New York will either be repurposed for GSUA operations or shut down entirely. AU delegations are already in talks with BRICS leaders to finalize the GSUA founding treaty. Part 11. Risks and challenges. Of course, leaving the UN is not without risks. Some African nations rely heavily on UN peacekeeping forces, development funds, and technical support. The GSUA will have to replace those structures quickly to prevent instability. There's also the risk of targeted sanctions, travel bans, and asset freezes on African leaders. But according to Mama Pan Africa, Open quote. They can freeze our assets, but they cannot freeze Africa's future. Close quote. The dream that keeps growing for ordinary Africans, this move has become more than politics. It's a dream. Social media, at least the African-run platforms, are flooded with artwork of a united Africa standing tall against a collapsing old order. Some call it risky, others call it destiny. And here at SABEN, we say, Tisu Banhu Vacho, the people who will not only witness history, but shape it. Final line for your outro. If one Africa walks away from the UN and builds its own world order, we may be watching the birth of the most powerful Africa in history. The question is, are you ready for
it? We are the motherfucking UN, bitch. Fuck the white boy who had done so much damage to the world, had made injustice justice. We are here to turn it all around. Justice will be justice, and swift injustice, and those who partake in it will be dealt with to the harshest degree. Period. Alright, we're on our way to the final cause here. Let's get it at it.
Shock. One Africa government votes to arrest any leader who signs Western military deals. By Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Banhu Bacho. My brothers and sisters, the continent has just drawn a line so bold, so sharp, that even the biggest presidential egos in Africa will think twice before stepping over it. This afternoon, in Addis Ababa, under the vaulted ceiling of the African Union Parliament, the One Africa government passed a resolution that could change the political climate of the continent forever. Any African head of state caught signing a military deal with a Western nation without AU approval will face immediate arrest. How we got here. You remember right here, we reported on the One Africa government's plan to kick every foreign military base off African soil. From Djibouti to Senegal, from Somalia to Niger, the message was clear. Africa will no longer host foreign armies.
This is what the body looks like after calisthenics workouts. If you can't do 50 push-ups,
But while the public debates raged, something else was happening in the shadows. Our sources in Shadow Unit Zulu, the AU's most secretive intelligence wing, have uncovered disturbing evidence. Some African presidents have been sneaking into backdoor negotiations with Western defense contractors and foreign generals, trying to sign new military agreements before the foreign base eviction deadline kicks in. Chairman Shadow told us, they thought nobody would find out. But Shadow Unit Zulu sees everything. Even the tea you drink in your office is probably aware of their presence. Part 2. The discovery by Shadow Unit Zulu. According to the leaked intel we've reviewed, Shadow Unit Zulu intercepted encrypted messages between certain African presidential aides and Western defense ministries. These weren't casual diplomatic chats. These were draft agreements for establishing joint training facilities, read, permanent bases, pre-positioning foreign weapons on African soil, secret commitments to allow foreign troops access to strategic airfields and ports. One intercepted document even contained a clause allowing a Western power to station a rapid deployment unit inside a supposedly African-controlled base. General Umoja, who oversees the One Africa Army's counterintelligence wing, told us bluntly, this is betrayal, plain and simple. It's like planning to rent out your bedroom to strangers while your family is busy building the house together. Part 3, the AU's explosive debate. The intelligence report hit the AU Parliament like a thunderclap. For 3 hours, delegates shouted, waved papers, and accused each other of being too soft on the sellouts. One East African representative said any president who signs such a deal is basically inviting a colonial-era governor back into the palace. A West African delegate shouted back that if leaders can't survive without Western military protection, maybe they're not fit to lead in the first place. And of course, because this is African politics, there were moments of comedy. One delegate proposed creating a presidential naughty list, so voters know who to vote out before they sell the country's ports to foreign troops. Part 4, the resolution. After hours of heated debate, the One Africa government passed the motion with overwhelming support. The key points. 1. Immediate arrest mandate. If a head of state is caught signing or attempting to sign a Western military deal without AU authorization, the One Africa Army will move in to detain them. 2. Asset freeze. All personal and family assets of the offending leader, inside and outside Africa, will be frozen under Afro-Gold anti-corruption statutes. 3. Succession protocol. If a leader is arrested, the AU will appoint an interim administrator from that country's parliament until fresh elections are held. 4. Intelligence sharing. Shadow Unit Zulu will continue surveillance on all high-level military communications between African leaders and foreign powers. Part 5. The reactions. On the continent, in cities across Africa, the reaction was electric. In Bamako, crowds gathered outside the AU's local office, chanting, "No more sellouts." In Nairobi, talk radio hosts spent hours debating which presidents might already be on Shadow Unit Zulu's watch list. In Western capitals, the response was icy. A European defense minister told reporters that the AU's decision was an overreach and that sovereign nations have a right to choose their security partners. In Washington, an unnamed Pentagon official reportedly called it a declaration of strategic hostility. Part 6. Comedy in the corridors. Our man on the ground in Addis told us the post-vote atmosphere was part tense, part hilarious. One Southern African delegate, known for his sharp tongue, said, "Any president who tries to sign a secret deal after today will basically be sending Shadow Unit Zulu a calendar invite to their own arrest." Another joked that they should start selling "I Survived Shadow Unit Zulu" t-shirts in the AU gift shop for leaders who can make it to 2026 without getting caught. Part 7. Shadow Unit Zulu's growing legend. This unit has become the stuff of legend. Formed in secrecy 2 years ago, they've been responsible for uncovering illegal arms shipments, foiling coup plots, and exposing foreign bribery networks. Now, with this resolution, they effectively have the green light to monitor every African president's military communications in real time. If you're a leader thinking about calling a Western general for a quick, private chat, good luck. Shadow Unit Zulu will probably be on the call before you finish dialing. Part 8. The stakes for Africa. Why such a hardline stance? Because the AU believes that foreign military deals are the back door through which Africa's sovereignty gets eroded. They often come with hidden clauses, giving foreign troops long-term access to bases, resources, or political leverage. They can be used to undermine AU security initiatives by creating rival command structures. They risk dragging African states into foreign conflicts that have nothing to do with the continent's interests. Chairman Shadow summed it up in one sentence. You cannot build one Africa with one hand while signing away your security with the other. Part 9. The political fallout. Even before the ink was dry on the resolution, rumors began swirling about which leaders might be in trouble. In West Africa, one president abruptly canceled a planned security partnership visit to a European capital. In North Africa, an entire delegation was recalled from a military expo in the Middle East. Meanwhile, opposition politicians in several countries are already sharpening their knives, hinting that their current presidents might be on the wrong side of the AU's patience. Part 10. The public's take on social media. Africans have turned the decision into a meme fest. A trending image shows an African president sneaking into a meeting room labeled Western military deals, only to find Shadow Unit Zulu already sitting inside, drinking tea. Another meme shows an AU soldier holding handcuffs with the caption, "We have a meeting, and you're the agenda." Part 11. What happens next? The AU has set up a special enforcement task force to operationalize the resolution. Its mandate: deploy rapid arrest teams in coordination with national security forces. Secure and archive any signed illegal agreements as evidence. Ensure a smooth political transition in any country where a leader is removed. Shadow Unit Zulu will remain the eyes and ears, but the task force will be the hands. Part 12. Closing with a cliffhanger. This, my brothers and sisters, is the first time in modern African history that the AU has openly threatened to arrest its own sitting presidents for actions deemed against continental security. The message is clear. The days of quietly signing foreign military deals in dimly lit backrooms are over. If you try it, the One Africa government will not just name and shame you, they'll send Shadow Unit Zulu to your doorstep. This is Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Vanhu Bacho. Stay watching, because the next arrest could be the headline we bring you tomorrow.
Wow. Okay, so we're running it down. Got 2 left. And the next one deals with the true size of Africa. So I'm going to play about half of it, excuse me, and then you can copy and paste it into seeing the other part. I'm getting a little bit tired. I try to make sure that it stays within the 3-hour, 2.5-hour mark. We're doing that, but I don't want to go over because I'm getting kind of tired. Let's get it moving.
For centuries, they lied to us, lied to the world about the true size of Africa, our glorious continent, using a distorted map to shrink our pride, our power, and our potential. But no more. The AU has dropped a truth so explosive it sent shockwaves across the globe, exposing the Mercator projection as a colonial scam designed to belittle Africa and keep us underfoot. This is not just a map correction. It's a revolution, a reclamation of our identity, and a clarion call for Africa to rise as the giant it has always been. The West, caught red-handed in a 450-year-old deception, has nowhere to hide their shame. Africa is awake, and the world will never be the same. Let's set the stage, brothers and sisters. In a move that has set social media platforms like X and TikTok ablaze, the AU has boldly endorsed the Correct the Map campaign, demanding that governments, international organisations and media outlets abandon the Mercator map, a 16th century relic crafted by Flemish cartographer Gerardus Mercator, and adopt the 2018 Equal Earth projection, which accurately reflects Africa's true size. The AU's social media post, shared with unapologetic pride, showcased a map of Africa so vast it could swallow the United States, China, India, the UK, Japan, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and still have room to spare. The caption was a thunderclap. Africa's true size is 30.37 million square kilometres, or 11.73 million square miles. What they mean is Africa's size can encompass several major nations of the world. This is no mere cartographic adjustment, it's a declaration of war against a lie that has shaped perceptions, policies and power dynamics for centuries. Let's unpack the scale of this deception. The Mercator projection, created in 1569 for maritime navigation, grotesquely distorts the size of land masses near the poles, inflating Europe, North America and Greenland, while shrinking equatorial regions like Africa and South America. The result?
This is how Kittl can help you take one idea and target multiple print-on-demand niches. Kittl is so easy and so fast to use. You can take any template and instantly change out illustrations, text, and make everything conform so that it works perfectly. This way, you don't have to take hours redesigning an entire piece. Then you can keep what's working in that template and make it work for another niche in just minutes. Kittl is totally free to try, so click the link and make an account.
Africa, the world's second largest continent, spanning 30.37 million square kilometres and home to 54 nations and over 1.4 billion people, appears smaller than Greenland, which is 14 times smaller in reality. Imagine the audacity of this lie, a continent vast enough to hold the world's so-called superpowers within its borders, reduced to a footnote on maps used in classrooms, boardrooms and newsrooms worldwide. This was no accident. It was a deliberate act of cartographic violence, a tool of colonial domination designed to make Africa appear marginal, fragmented, and insignificant. The AU's deputy chairperson, Selma Malika Haddadi, spoke with the fire of truth when she told Reuters it might seem to be just a map, but in reality it is not. She's right. This is about far more than geography. The Mercator map has been a weapon of psychological warfare, embedding a false narrative that Africa is lesser in the minds of our children, our leaders, and the world.
I want to stop it there, and you got the general idea. It is a psychological war. And if you can tell someone that they ain't shit, they'll never be shit, and they never will be shit, they have not been shit, then they'll think they're just a pile of shit. But the white boy is a pile of shit because he has nothing to do with nothing. The only thing he ever brought to the table of humanity was death, destruction, disease, and despair. But I'm going to leave it there, and then you can always go to the comment and look up the what I have put the YouTube video. You can just copy and paste that, and then you'll be all good in the game. So let's get this last one out, and I'll be back with my comment.
Alert. One Africa government just announced reparations from the West. Bill set at $777 trillion.
And they're going to pay it.
By Takunda Mavika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Vanhuvacha. Brothers and sisters, this is not your ordinary headline. This is not your cousin forwarding you a WhatsApp breaking news about free electricity or petrol price drops. No. This one is the type of news that makes presidents in Paris spill their wine, White House advisors Google, "What's the AU again?" and certain old European monarchies quietly lock their palace vaults. The One Africa government has just dropped a bombshell. In a confidential liability assessment leaked to CBN by our man inside, Chairman Shadow, the African Union has placed the bill for reparations from the West at a jaw-dropping, world-shaking, eye-watering $777 trillion. Part 1. 777. What's in a number? First, let's clear the air. This is not Africa waking up one morning, scribbling a random number on a napkin, and mailing it to London. The 777 figure is symbolic and calculated, or at least that's what the AU wants you to believe. According to Chairman Shadow, the 777 comes from 3 layers. 1, 7 pillars, categories of reparations claims. 2, 7 eras, from the transatlantic slave trade to present-day financial exploitation. 3, 7 valuation lenses, the economic models used to put a dollar tag on each wrong. Put them together and you don't just get a number, you get a political earthquake with gold trimmings. Part 2. The 7 pillars of 777 insiders say the AU's reparations task force divided the claims into 7 main pillars. 1, resource extraction, underpricing. All the gold, diamonds, oil, cobalt, and other minerals exported at a fraction of their real market value. 2, illicit financial flows. The billions siphoned annually through tax evasion, transfer mispricing, and outright theft. 3, climate loss and damage. Compensation for the disproportionate effects of climate change on African economies caused by industrialized nations. 4, forced labor and slavery. Historical valuation of unpaid labor plus compound interest over centuries. 5, colonial-era debt and interest. Debts imposed by colonial powers that independent African states were forced to repay. 6, cultural asset restitution. The value of stolen artifacts, from Benin bronzes to sacred masks, plus lost tourism revenue. 7, industrial opportunity cost. The economic growth Africa lost due to being locked into a raw materials economy. General Umoja, who has been advising on the security implications of this report, said Africa collecting even half this amount would make the continent unrecognizable. Forget continent, Africa would be a different planet. Part 3, how they calculated it. This isn't a random figure pulled out of an activist's manifesto. The AU brought in economists, historians, and even forensic accountants. Resource underpricing. They compared historical export prices to fair market prices, multiplied by volumes, adjusted for inflation, and compounded interest. Illicit flows. Used UNTAD's benchmark of $88.6 billion annually in illicit financial outflows as a conservative floor, projected over decades. Climate damage. Modeled using UN loss and damage frameworks, assigning Africa a percentage of global costs. Artifacts. Valued at both insurance and cultural economic levels, adding a heritage multiplier. One AU economist was overheard saying that if they can calculate compound interest on colonial debt, Africa can calculate compound justice on African value. Part 4. The Diplomat's Whisper Game. The leak says this isn't an invoice, yet. Officially, it's called a reparations liability assessment. Think of it as Africa showing the West the upper bound of what it believes is owed. The AU plans to negotiate country-by-country compacts, accepting a mix of cash settlements, debt cancellations, infrastructure swaps, artifact returns, technology transfers, climate adaptation funding. But Chairman Shadow warns not to be fooled. The phases and partnerships talk doesn't change the principle. The West now knows Africa's number. Part 5. The Western Panic. You can almost hear the sound of coffee cups shattering in European ministries. One diplomat in Brussels reportedly asked if they could pay in installments over 400 years. In Washington, an anonymous State Department source muttered that this will never fly, but they can't be seen rejecting it outright. Meanwhile, civil society groups in the West are torn. Some back the principle, pointing to Germany's apology and funding to Namibia for colonial atrocities. Others fear a precedent avalanche if Africa pulls this off. The street reaction in Africa, from Cairo to Cape Town, the streets are buzzing. In Lagos, pay the bill is trending. In Nairobi, one radio host joked they'll take the money in gold bars. In Johannesburg, taxi drivers are debating whether RDP houses will come with free Wi-Fi if the AU gets the payout. One young entrepreneur in Accra told SIBN they don't care how the AU collects it, just make sure some of it ends up in the hands of young Africans building businesses, not just in new government SUVs. Part 7. The Legal Chess Game. Legal experts say the AU's smart play is calling this an assessment and linking it to existing frameworks like the CARICOM 10-point plan for reparatory justice in the Caribbean, the Mau Mau settlement between the UK and Kenyan claimants, the UN's Loss and Damage Fund under climate agreements. By tying it to precedent, Africa sidesteps the greed. This is an impossible argument and instead says, we're just scaling up what's already been done.
Are you interested in meaningful connections? Try this platform. Here you may find new emotions. Chat with
8. The payment plan. How $777 trillion would work. Nobody expects a check. The AU's plan is a 50-year horizon, collecting around 0.7 to 1% of donor GDP annually. Payments could be direct to the AU Reparations Trust in the form of canceled debt, climate fund top-ups earmarked for Africa, guaranteed infrastructure projects, artifact returns booked at cultural economic value. Chairman Shadow says Africa will take cash, projects, or assets, but the value must add up. Part 9. Comedy in the corridors. Of course, you know African leaders can't resist a laugh in serious meetings. One president reportedly asked if they could add an extra $3 trillion for emotional distress. Another joked that if the UK can't pay in cash, they can give Africa Buckingham Palace as a conference center. A West African delegate quipped that France owes so much, they might as well put them on a payment plan longer than their electricity contracts in West Africa. Part 10. Will the West negotiate? Some Western countries might engage, especially on non-cash pillars like artifact returns, tech access, and climate funding. Others will resist, fearing domestic backlash. Insiders say the AU expects negotiated reductions, but the real win is getting the West to accept the principle of reparations for Africa as a bloc. Part 11. The security dimension. General Umoja is already planning for reparations diplomacy to turn nasty. He warns that foreign powers might try to destabilize AU unity, picking off weaker states with bilateral offers to water down the plan. That's why the AU is considering a reparations protection protocol, basically a political and economic shield for any member state facing retaliation for supporting 777. Closing. So here we are. Africa has named its number. The West is quietly panicking. The global press hasn't even caught the full scent yet. And in AU headquarters, the 777 file sits on a mahogany desk, waiting for the official negotiation offer to be sent. As I wrap this up, remember, the figure itself is less important than the fact Africa finally put a dollar value on centuries of exploitation. Whether it's $777 trillion or $77 trillion, the message is clear. Africa is no longer asking for aid. It's presenting a bill. This is Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Vanhuvacha. Stay watching, because if the West replies to this bill, you'll hear it here first.
All right. We are at the crossroad, and it's just a matter of time. So let me get out of here and come back to this. Where we at? Oh, okay. So my final comment is really simple. You cannot demand something without power. Power concedes everything you want to exist in life. People who are poor don't get any respect. That's just the way it goes. It's very important to understand that power concedes nothing without demand. Power concedes nothing without demand. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that white folks are not good at all. They're nasty, dirty, disgusting individuals. There are no good white folks at all. That is nothing but a color. It makes you look and feel good about the one that put up that false impression. It is what it is. I wouldn't give a fuck how somebody makes you feel good. Is it actual fact? And so, with that, until next Tuesday, for the next 24/7, 365, stay black. Peace out.